Balak, the king of the Moabites, afraid of the approaching Israelites, hires Balaam, a local prophet, non-Jew. Go curse the Jews. They're a threat. So Balaam saddles his donkey to ride up to the place where he can look down upon the Israelites and curse them. But as he travels, something gets in the way. God has sent an angel with a sword to stand in the path. And while Balaam doesn't see it, the donkey does, and the donkey turns to the side. Balaam is incensed. He whips the donkey to get it back on the path. The donkey again swerves, trying to avoid the angel with the sword. Balaam again whips it. The donkey gives up, lays down in the middle of the road, and Balaam continues to strike it and whip it and beat it. And God opens the mouth of the donkey and says, Balaam, why aren't you seeing what I'm seeing? God has sent an angel to stand in our way, and you don't see it, and I do. God doesn't want you to do this. We're not looking really at two different beings here, Balaam and his donkey. We're looking at one being. We're looking at the intellect and the gut. We can convince ourselves that the path that we're on is the right path and we're doing something that's the right thing when in fact it's not. And we're not able to see it. And the only thing that communicates with us and tells us that what we're doing is wrong is our gut. So the question is, how far do each of us have to go before we listen to our gut, before we listen to the part of our character, the ethical part of us that is within our limbs, within our legs, even within our ass?
Well, that was certainly interesting. Also feels very timely. For those who don't know, but
Are you hungry?
What?
I said, are you hungry?
Oh no, I was talking more so about the whole idea of people intellectualizing away their morality.
Okay, I thought it was listening to your gut and being hungry. That's a different take. So tag.
That's fair. Also, just I don't know, someone who just gets off on whipping a donkey. I don't know. Kind of feels a bit too familiar, too close for comfort.
Well, as long as they're doing it off camera, that makes it okay, right?
Well, true, I guess. I don't know. Maybe that's YouTube's rules, but it is kind of interesting though, because I feel like a lot of people end up kind of missing a lot of that story. Let's see. Wait, is it?
Well, I'm not sure there's Bible stories. You can't say that about
Many
a lot of
years
people
ago,
missing the point, Tag.
Fair.
I'd been watching a documentary on either the first Christians or the early church, something to that effect. And there was something, a haunting image that, although only mentioned and shown briefly in passing, nevertheless deeply affected me and has lingered in my mind ever since. It was an ancient and blasphemous bit of graffiti depicting a man worshiping a crucified figure with the head of an ass. Accompanying the image was the mocking inscription, Alexamenos worships his god. This image, apparently depicting a crucified and donkey-headed Christ, is known as the Alexamenos graffito, or the graffito blasphemo. It's thought to date to somewhere around the beginning of the 3rd century CE. It was originally scrawled on a plaster wall near Rome's Palatine Hill, but currently resides in the Palatine Museum. The ancient graffito was discovered in 1857 during the excavation of a building known as the Domus Galatiana. If the story wasn't already lurid enough, the house once belonged to the infamous Roman Emperor Caligula. He had used it as the imperial palace, and after his assassination, it was converted into a boarding school for imperial page boys. The street on which the Domus Galatiana resides had been walled off to give support to buildings above. It was in a room somewhere in this general area that the graffito blasphemo was found after being sealed away for centuries. The human figure to the left, apparently raising his arm in worship before the crucified deity, is thought to be the Alexamenos named in the inscription, possibly a young Roman soldier or guard. In the upper right corner above one of the crucified figure's extended arms is a symbol thought to be either the Greek letter epsilon or something known as the tau cross, tau being the 19th letter of the Greek alphabet and resembling a capital T. The tau cross also came to be associated with St. Anthony of Egypt and thusly is sometimes referred to as St. Anthony's cross. Why the donkey head, you may be asking? Well, much like in our own time, comparing someone to a donkey or an ass would have been seen as an insult in ancient Roman society. Pagans found the idea of worshiping a man who had been crucified to be contemptible. Crucifixion was a form of capital punishment and was considered the undignified death of a condemned criminal. Another reason for the donkey head may be the misconception ancient pagans had in the classical world that Christians practice onolatry or donkey worship. This being based on yet another misconception that Jews worship God in the form of a donkey. In response to the Hellenized Egyptian grammarian and sophist Appian, a Jewish writer states, Appian ought to have had a regard to these facts, unless he had himself had either an ass's heart or a dog's impudence, of such a dog, I mean, as they worship. For he had no other external reason for the lies he tells of us. As for us Jews, we ascribe no honor nor power to asses. The early church father Origen, in his work Contra Celsum, mentions how the philosopher Celsus made a similar claim. For the sake of such a monstrous delusion, and in support of those wonderful advisers and those wonderful words which you addressed to the lion, to the amphibious creature, to the creature in the form of an ass, and to others for the sake of those divine doorkeepers. Another early church father, Tertullian, also reported that Jews and Christians were accused of venerating some sort of deity in the form of a donkey or ass. He also mentions an apostate Jew who supposedly carried with him a caricature of a Christian possessing the ears and hooves of a donkey. The drawing was supposedly labeled Deus Christianorum Onosotes, the God of the Christian begotten of an ass. An alternate theory is that both the graffito and images engraved on contemporary gems are a reflection of actual beliefs held by a heretical sect or sects. I neglected to mention it earlier, but the Alexamenos graffito is actually thought to be one of the earliest depictions of Jesus, possibly meant as a riposte or response to the seemingly mocking graffito. In a chamber next to where the Alexamenos graffito was originally found, there is another inscription in a different hand that simply reads, Alexamenos Fidelis. Alexamenos is faithful. Thank you for listening to this special episode of The Week in Doubt.
didn't really cover what I wanted to, but
Well, how accurate is that really? The whole donkey allegation is that's kind of an inaccurate interpretation of the pictures. Isn't the proper allegation they're worshiping Set, whose animal was an unidentified animal, not a donkey? Hey,
I mean, I don't think that would be worshiping Set because it says worships. Because I'm pretty sure the context is Christian in that, and I mean, I guess you could say, oh well, it's connected, but um,
I was just thinking it was a poorly drawn, it's supposed to be an unidentified animal. And if they're going, the angle I was playing there.
Yeah.
The donkey thing is just a gross, Roman times mischaracterization of the old school
Are
unidentified
there
animal.
any other figures like St. Christopher? Bishop Barron talked about the donkey. Jesus rode as a Christopher.
also I feel like it's probably relevant to show us right now because this does. Let's see if I can find it. It's going to be further up, I believe. Let's see. Let me see if I can find it. All right. Okay, where? Oh, yeah, here. Wait, what? Okay, that's strange. This translation has it as, Yeah, this doesn't make sense because before the translations I've all seen render it as ass or donkey. Let's see. One moment. Yeah, I guess this translation has it with a horse, but it is like a pre-existing tradition. If I can just find it now. Let's see. Yeah, it's further up. So it is Bull El, father, and Lady Atarat of the sea, Atarat Zashra, answered, hear, O Kujwa Amrar. One of the renderings I've seen is like the holy and blessed, or like holy and, blessed and holy. O fisher of Lady Atarat of the sea, tie the horse, and I'm just going to, read it how I've seen before. Tie the ass, harness the donkey. Set ropes of silver, golden bridles, prepare the ropes. Okay, wait, interesting. So here it changes to mare. So, but anyway, Kuchwa Amrar complied. He tied the ass, harnessed the donkey. He set ropes of silver, golden bridles. He prepared the ropes of her she donkey. Kuchwa Amrar clasped, set Acharat on the back of the ass, on the beautiful back of the horse. I mean, beautiful back of the donkey. Kuch flared up as a flame. Amrar like a star in front. Behind came adolescent Anat, but balls departed for the summit of Sapan. So she headed out for El at the springs of the rivers amid the streams of the deep. So I don't know. It's definitely like a pre-existing motif.
Okay, no, so Bishop Barron talked about the donkey Jesus rode as a Christopher or Christ carrier, bearer of Christ to the world. Thoughts?
That's interesting because notice that in that narrative, you have that idea of the light bearer as well. He prepares the donkey, and then it says, "Kuch flared up as a flame, Amrar like a star in front." That seems like a pretty big connection to that whole idea of like the. Well, I mean, oh, never mind. He was talking about Crucifer, not Lucifer, but still, I feel like there is kind of that shared motif, even if it's like not direct.
And then he says, seems like Mary would be another example of a St. Christopher and John the Baptist. Am I losing it? And then a laughing face. Yes, that's not the same. It's not the same. So, well, you know, it's not totally completely separate, right? So the donkey that carries Christ, Bishop Aaron is very smart to notice that is definitely a Christopher, and very much so. One of the images of Christ that the church fathers saw in the Old Testament was the Balaam's ass. If you guys know the story, Balaam was
Balaam.
a sorcerer who was going to curse the people of Israel, was going to curse the chosen people. And as he was going to curse the chosen people, an angel appeared on the road with a sword, you know, to I don't remember if in the story it says he has a sword, but an angel appeared and was going to cut him down. And then his ass starts to move to the side, veer to the side. And Balaam is like beating it so that it gets back onto the path. And then it starts to veer again to the side, and he's like beating it to get it to the path, you know. And then at some point the ass lays down, and Balaam is like beating his donkey, like, what are you doing? Why aren't you moving? And everything. And then the donkey speaks and tells him, you know, that he saved his life and that he saved him from the judgment of this angel. And so that has always been an image that the church fathers use for Christ. And so really is this notion, the possibility of the animal aspect to carry the logos. And so that ass is an extension of your body, right? Just like you ride your body, you know, you can also extend that into a car or a horse or a donkey or whatever. Like, you extend your power to direct yourself with these. And so the ass becomes an image of that, and especially an image of that because the donkey is an impure animal as well. And so there's also this idea of the foreigner in the notion of the ass as well. Just like Christopher was a Canaanite, just like Christopher was a foreigner, the ass is also related to the foreigner. It'd be difficult to go into all the reasons why, but one of the reasons is that he's impure. Another reason is some of the characters in the Old Testament, like Hamor, who was different characters who were foreigners and who are like the red donkey, kind of helping you understand this notion of the foreigner as and Hebrew Jews until today, they interpret the donkey as the foreign nations, you know. And so you have this sense that when Christ is riding the donkey, he's riding the foreign nations. So you can imagine, for example, the Roman Empire converting. That's like St. Christopher transformation, where St. Christopher converts to Christianity, carries Christ further out. Where in terms of the Mother of God, it's different. It's similar in the sense that, in a way, the Mother of God represents this potentiality that receives the logos, but there's really a difference between the wild, like the animal, foreigner, prostitute, should do the other hand, left hand, warrior, like the foreigner, prostitute, donkey, impure, all that stuff, and then the pure, the notion of potentiality as this pure, untouched, virgin state, in which the logos finds the proper house. So you really have to separate those two, because they do end up being important in the West. That's why you really do have this. You have Mary, the Mother of God, and then you have Mary Magdalene. And so those two opposites represent two aspects of.
And then you have Mariam, the Lady of the Sea,
of the church, and two aspects of the incarnation. In the East, we don't have Mary Magdalene the way she is in the West, but we have Saint Mary of Egypt. So Mary of Egypt is everything. She's a prostitute. She's a foreigner. Lives on the other side of the Jordan. She has all the elements about that wild aspect, which is then can also receive Christ and be tamed by Christ. So we have to be able to really differentiate the two. One, we could call it the inner mystery of the pure heart, which receives the Logos, which descends into it and manifests itself. And the other is the garments of skin, you could say, that can be transformed into garments of glory. Something like that.
Interesting.
Now, am I supposed to attribute significance to it being a female donkey in relationship to the mysteries?
What do you mean?
Well, you know how the use of the female is for the creating the mysteries, right? I can point you to a YouTube channel if you have confusion.
Oh God. Oh God. Actually, now that I think about it, I have heard someone suggest something like that.
You do realize I was entirely joking. I was unaware of anybody actually saying that seriously. I was hoping nobody had.
What's the rule of the internet? If you can imagine it, it exists.
Oh yeah, I too often I find out that my jokes, somebody actually took them seriously before that.
While donkeys are thought to be stubborn, they are actually highly intelligent creatures that can form tight bonds with humans. Donkeys are members of the horse family, although donkeys and horses represent two very different species. After domestication in Egypt and North Africa, where they were used for meat and milk, they evolved to become working beasts used to carry people or packages. They are slower than horses but are more sure-footed. Historians believe that the domestication of donkeys increased the mobility of pasture cultures in the ancient world. Equipped with a social and calming nature, donkeys get along well with other domesticated mammals and can also be excellent companions for people with physical or mental disabilities. Donkeys are often referred to as burros. In Spanish, the word burrito means little donkey, which also refers to the Mexican food that resembles the packs that donkeys carry. Donkeys graze throughout the day and like a diet low in protein and high in fiber. Female donkeys are called jennies, males are called jacks, and castrated males are called geldings. Donkeys were commonly referred to as asses until about 1785, when the word slowly began falling out of use because of its pejorative context. Startled donkeys will freeze or move a few steps away when they are scared to assess their situation instead of running away, a characteristic which gives them their undeserved reputation for being stubborn. These animals come in many different sizes and colors. Wild species grow to about 49 inches from hoof to shoulder and weigh about 551 pounds. Domesticated donkeys come in different sizes, depending on how they are bred. They are typically 36 inches to 48 inches from hoof to shoulder, weighing from 400 to 500 pounds. The Sicilian donkey is the smallest, reaching only 24 inches, while the ass of Majorca is about 62 inches. The mammoth stock, the largest domestic breed, is 56 inches from hoof to shoulder and weighs about 950 pounds. Color ranges for these animals range from white and gray to black. Gray is the most common color, followed by brown, black, and roan, white with a mixture of other pigmented hairs. Most usually have a dark stripe of fur down their backs from mane to tail and across their shoulders. They have short, upright manes with a tail that is more similar to that of a cow than that of a horse. They have very long ears that are dark at the tip and the base. Their large ears also help cool donkeys by using them in a fan-like manner. These animals enjoy the company of other donkeys and often bond with other individuals. When their kind are not present, they will often bond with horses, mules, and other small stock. Once a human has earned their confidence, they are often willing and companionable partners. Because of their ability to form strong bonds, separating a bonded donkey pair can cause stress leading to hyperlipidemia, a blood condition that can result in a heart attack or stroke. Although they have a reputation for stubbornness, this trait is a self-preservation characteristic, which is why it is difficult to force a donkey into doing something that it perceives as dangerous. Their body language is also less expressive than those of horses, so they can be hard to read. A slight widening of their eyes can be misread as curiosity when it means stress or fear. A lack of movement when viewing an object that they fear is part of their reduced flight response. They will often defend themselves by biting, striking with the front hooves, or kicking with the hind legs. These animals are known to be intelligent as well as cautious, friendly, playful, and eager to learn, which usually begins from the moment they're born and continues throughout their lifetimes. Domesticated donkeys are more territorial than horses, which is why they are sometimes used to guard herds of sheep and goats against predators, often stomping on anything that they feel is a threat. In many parts of the world where horses cannot easily survive or where there is extreme poverty, they are the primary beasts of burden and sources of transportation. They rest during the hottest part of the day and are more active in the morning and evening when they travel with the herd and eat. Domesticated donkeys are found all over the world in many different cultures, but if given their preference, they are best adapted for warm, dry areas, particularly marginal desert areas. This adaptation has provided them with hardy immune and digestive systems. Wild donkeys are usually solitary and do not form harems, with each adult establishing a home range. One jack may dominate breeding over a wide area. If a domesticated donkey becomes feral and can choose its home, it will look for a warm place to live. Wild donkeys live in deserts and savannas in northern Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, and the Middle East. These animals also live in Turkey, China, and in northern areas of Pakistan, India, Nepal, and Bhutan. Their loud calls, also known as a bray, and be heard over 3 kilometers and may act as a way for donkeys to keep in touch with each other in the wild. These animals are herbivores, meaning they eat no meat. They enjoy a variety of foods, including hay, oats, grains, and grasses, but they will also eat shrubs and desert plants in certain areas. Their large lips allow them to grab plants and pull them into their mouths, where they rip it apart with large front teeth and grind it before swallowing. These voracious eaters can consume as much as 6,000 pounds of food each year. Their immense appetites can become a problem if they become feral and take over the food supply from local creatures. Some estimate that the world's donkey population could fall by half within the next 5 years to meet a rising demand for donkey hides used in traditional Chinese medicine. In 2006, the world had a donkey population of approximately 41 million. The worldwide number appears to continue to decrease even among domesticated donkeys, as some poachers have raided domestic herds in some areas to satisfy the need for donkeys to create the gelatin-based traditional medicine called EJIAO. Gelatin-based traditional medicine called EJIAO.
So yeah, I mean, it makes sense why it's seen as like a prophetic animal, because it's really fucking smart.
Today, I'd like to talk about...
Oh shoot, here.
Today, I'd like to talk about where our modern day donkey came from. And I'm going to go through around 50 million years in around 5 minutes. The ancestor of the modern donkey and horse was called Hyracotherium, or dawn horse. Lived around 50 million years ago and was a dog-sized animal with 4 tiny hooves on each front leg and 3 on the back. You can see the bones of the front lower limb on the right of your screen. According to the theory of evolution, all vertebrates, those animals with a backbone, are built to a common basic blueprint, from bats to whales, from cats to humans. Over the millennia, this is a very slow process, adaptations occur to make a species better able to survive in the environment in which it lives. All the bones in cream in this diagram are a variation on the theme of a 5-digit appendage. So the whale developed a very efficient flipper, perfectly designed to power him through the water. and man developed a highly dexterous hand, allowing for complex tasks such as writing. But what of the donkey? Well, in order to run faster and live more successfully in the arid desert lands of its native North Africa, it gradually reduced the number of functional digits and ended up walking on the very tip of its middle digit, which became both longer and stronger. Today's donkey still has the remnants of its second and fourth digits, the very slender and now functionless splint bones lying on the back surface of the cannon bone. That's the long bone between what we call the knee and the fetlock. The knee is actually the equivalent of our wrist, and the fetlock is the equivalent of our knuckle. Who knows, in another 1,000,000 years or so, those useless splint bones may have disappeared. The thing about evolution is it never stops. If that all seemed a bit complicated, maybe this diagram will help. Note the identical bones in the donkey's lower limb and the human middle finger. Can you see that the donkey is walking on his middle finger? And of course, the same applies to the horse. Now let's fast forward to around 5,000 years ago, where there is evidence that donkeys were domesticated and used as beasts of burden and as a source of meat in Egypt. This Egyptian stone carving on the left dates back some 5,000 years and clearly shows donkeys looking much like the donkeys of today. Donkey skeletons have been found with damaged backbones, indicating that they were carrying heavy loads. Indeed, donkeys were ridden long before horses. As the Romans started to take over the world, they took donkeys with them as beasts of burden, and we have the Romans to thank for donkeys living throughout Europe and the UK. Today, donkeys are found all over the world and are a species of major economic importance in developing countries. They are the white van, the JCB, the tractor, for people who cannot afford heavy machinery. Anyone who has kept a donkey will know that they are truly wonderful and seem to develop a really special affinity with people who have mental and physical challenges. And they are increasingly used to bring joy and peace to a variety of such people, from children to war veterans. And if you're wondering about the donkey on the bottom left, well, this is a bee farmer's donkey in his full working gear. Scientists believe that all today's donkeys are descended from two types. The Somali donkey is still wild, but the Nubian is believed to be extinct in the wild, although of course you will recognize it as a thoroughly modern donkey. Interestingly, the stripy legs seen on the Somali donkey are often present on today's domesticated donkeys, indicating crossbreeding way back in time. Today we see a huge variety of donkeys, both in terms of size and colour. If you're a donkey owner in the Middle East or the desert areas of the US, your donkeys should feel right at home. We have seen that they are descendants of donkeys from hot and arid areas of the world, and we know that they thrive in warm, dry weather. If, however, you keep a donkey in the UK, where there is an abundance of grass and rain, well, the donkey is truly out of its environmental comfort zone, and that makes management quite a challenge. Just remember, evolutionary change is a very slow process. Donkeys, having only been in Northern Europe for around 2,000 years, are relative newcomers and have not had time to adapt to suit the cooler, wetter climate. Do have a look at my presentation entitled Donkeys, Not Just a Small Horse, to find out more.
Interesting. One of the things that I find intriguing is, you can see donkeys are really smart because they manage to go around giving 4 middle fingers at the world and nobody gets upset at them. Tag.
That's pretty funny.
The other one is they clearly have a good lobbying group.
Why
Because they were able to get their name changed from ass to donkey good couple 200 years before the Native Americans were able to do that with sports teams.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something about it being the symbol of the Democratic Party.
No, that's the Democrats right now are too cheap, too easy to do cheap shots with. I'm just, that's not fair to the donkeys. Okay.
1 second. Let's see.
One of the connections between
let's see. Let's see what else I can find on Block before we actually start.
It's all part of the fun. Listen, the Barbanel, the great commentator, the Barbanel Bereshis, he asks the following question. He actually asks one of the classic commentators. He led the Barbanel, led the Jews out of Spain in the time being the Inquisition. He was the Jewish leader. King Ferdinand and Ferdinand Isabella. So King Ferdinand, actually, he was the finance minister in Spain, and they offered him to stay in Spain with a minion of Jews. They were expelling everybody, and they offered Barbanel, Dan Yitzhak Barbanel. They offered him to stay in Spain with a minion of Jews. He declined the offer. He led the Jews out, and that was in 1492. And they found in Columbus's memoirs, they found that he said that when he got to the port to leave with the ships, Columbus, he said he was delayed at the port because there's so many ships full of Jews that were leaving also. And there is even speculation, there's speculation that he himself was Jewish, that Columbus was Jewish. There's speculation. Then again, Jews somehow are always trying to find out that somebody else was Jewish. Like you find out Obama, I heard his grandfather was Jewish. We're not looking for what you go. We're not looking for but by Columbus, there are various indications. They claim that they found Hebrew in his memoir. They found Hebrew writing, and the fact that he was leaving Spain in 1492 and going sailing to who knows where also is suspect. Whether or not it's true or not, is immaterial. But that was what he called. Okay, so we are on page. We're on Paragraph Base Pasuk Chaf Gimel. Does everybody have Chumash? Everybody who came in, you guys, all the new guys have Chumash. May provide them with Chumash. Chaf Base Chaf Gimel on page 860. So here we have the what do you call it? Page 860. So we're in the middle of Balaam and his donkey. Again, I ask to hold all questions and comments till the end, and then we'll try to so we get a handle on what's really going on here. So in Pasuk 23 again, third line from the top. The donkey sees the angel, the donkey veers off of the path. Bilam hits it. So he spoke Esther about 3 places that the Torah reports that the donkey first he veered off in a wider area, then a narrow area, and then an area where he couldn't turn back at all. And then skip down to Pasuk 28. Now you notice, by the way, over here, who we're talking about. We're talking about a man who's the personification of evil, personification of bad, and yet he's giving these constant warnings. God is trying to help him to not go off. And according to there are certain sources that say that besides the recorded warnings, there were 7 other warnings. That means we're talking about a man who's absolutely no good. Yet God is doing everything in his power to try to help the guy not to sin. Hold all the questions. He's trying to do everything in his power to help him not to sin. You see, God, the Christian idea of the devil with the pitchfork is waiting for us, and God's waiting for us to sin, and he's smiling up there saying, "Make my day," so they can put us in the toaster. That is not a Jewish idea. To the contrary, God wants us to do well. He doesn't want to say. You see, even a Russia like Balaam, that God is trying to stop it. Okay, now take a look at Pasuk 28, and we're going to stay on these for a while. 6 lines on the bottom. God opens the mouth of the donkey. Vatomer leBilam, the donkey says to Balaam, what did I do to you? What did I do that you hit me 3 times? What did I ever do to you? So the first thing we need to know here is the donkey talks. What would your reaction be if a donkey spoke? If here you are, you're what do you call it? You're right. Also, the donkey says to you, he says, "Hey, why are you hitting me, bro? What did I ever do to you? And then what is Balaam's reaction? He starts talking to the donkey. And most people, if a donkey spoke to you, your reaction, can you imagine you open, your car breaks down, so you kick the tire of your car. So your car all of a sudden says to you, hey, what did you kick me for? And then you just start talking to your car. Well, I told you not to break. Most people would, what do you call it? If your car started talking to you, and think, hey, something a little odd about this. Something here's not making sense. And Balaam just got to go to conduct himself. Now, take a look at Rashi here. We're going to go for a little ride, gentlemen. Take a look at Rashi. You'll notice that when he says, why'd you hit me 3 times, which expression he uses shalosh regolim. What is shalosh regolim generally called? The 3 holidays, we call it the shalosh regolim. Yet here, it means 3 times. Now, if you take a look at Rashi, it's, where's the Rashi? It's the left column of Rashi. It's the left column, 5 lines. So if you find it, please show the person next to you. The left column right says, Zesh shalosh regolim. You've hit me 3 times. Ramzalo, the donkey, was hinting to Balaam, Ata mivakesh lak or uma, you want to uproot a nation. Hachogeges shalosh regolim b'shana. You want to uproot a nation that celebrates 3 holidays in the course of the year. Obviously, he's saying to Balaam, the Jewish people have a certain merit. And the merit of the Jewish people is the merit. Is that door open over there? They're far door. There's noise coming from somewhere. Okay. The Jewish people have a certain merit. One of the merits of the Jewish people is that they celebrate 3 holidays a year. What's the obvious question? The 3 regolim. There's Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. What's the obvious question? The merit of the Jewish people is they celebrate 3 holidays a year. What's the obvious question? Okay, but they're already got the commands. What do you call it? That they already received the Torah. What's the obvious question? If I asked you, well, what are the merits of the Jewish people? What's the first thing that will come to mind? We keep Shabbos. We don't eat non-kosher food. We don't kill people. We don't what do you call it? We don't buy retail. We don't what do you call it? Jewish people have a lot of merits. The Jewish people. What's unique about the 3 holidays that's what the donkey calls to mind? By the way, when it says the donkey spoke, according to all commentaries, this was not an intelligent thinking donkey. This is, what's the thing? AI? Is that what it's called? Artificial intelligence. This is AI. This is the original AI. See, everything's in the Torah. Everything's in the Torah. This is not a, what do you call it? This is not intelligent. God opened the mouth of the donkey and the words came out. I don't know, those of you who are not, I don't know if any of you are aware, back when I was a kid, they had a show on TV called Mr. Ed. Did you ever hear Mr. Ed, the talking horse? Yeah. Where do you think Hollywood got the idea of a talking horse? Why wasn't it a talking llama? Why isn't it a talking lion? Where did they get the idea of a talking horse? You see, everything comes from, even the Wizard of Oz, by the way, where she splashes her with the water. I'm melting. The Gemara says that witchcraft is you can ward off witchcraft with water. That's what the Gemara says. How do you like that? So I assume that the Jewish writers of the Wizard of Oz, or any Jewish production people in production, were probably yeshiva guys who former yeshiva guys who went off, and they remembered that one thing from yeshiva. They remembered something about witchcraft. It's a fun subject to remember. I'm assuming that's what happened. Right? All these ideas. So here you got a talking donkey. So first of all, it's not an intelligence. That means it's the word of God coming through the mouth of the donkey. So the answer is like this. Let's stay with. We're gonna go for a little bit of a ride. Remember, we said that Balaam had 3 negative traits. He had a begrudging eye, and which is the jealousy. He's out of control physically. And what was the third one? He's out of control physically, and he's got this tremendous desire for honor. He's not satisfied with what he has. So in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, it says that there are the 3 negative traits which are the seat of all negative behavior, which are kina, taiva, and kavod, right? There's jealousy, there's the pursuit of physical pleasure, and there's the pursuit of honor. Now, if you look at these 3 traits, jealousy, the pursuit of physical pleasure, the pursuit of honor, let's say you carried them to their worst possible extension. Jealousy, the original jealousy in history led to what? Murder. Cain killed Hevel. And by the way, the word Cain is related to the
Cain, yeah.
It's also related to the Hebrew word kinyan, which is acquisition. When are you jealous of somebody? You're jealous of their acquisitions, whether physical acquisitions or talent acquisitions, whatever somebody else possesses. The pursuit of pleasure, which has been generally manifest at the highest level in immorality, could lead you to immorality. Therefore, it's called adultery. And the pursuit of honor, which means I'm not concerned about what God wants, I'm concerned about what I want. I'm not going to worship the way God wants, I'm going to worship the way I want, lead you to idol worship. That means that the 3 traits of kina, taiva, and kavod carried to their extent, to the extent that they can go, will lead you to the 3 cardinal sins that a Jew has to forfeit his life for, which are idol worship, immorality, and murder. So Balaam not only possesses these traits. What he really wants to do is he wants to contaminate the Jewish people with these traits. We who are fighting our life against that, we spend our life fighting to get ourselves under control, primarily in these. By the way, any misbehavior of a person will have 1 or more of these 3 traits underlying it. No matter what the sin is, the sin will have 1 or more. It's either a result of jealousy, it's either a result of desire, or it's a result of the pursuit of honor. Any sin that we're involved with, it's going to have 1 or more of those factors in there, whichever the Avera is. Now, there are 3 holidays we celebrate in the course of the year. The first holiday is Pesach. What did the Jewish people do on Pesach in Mitzrayim? They slaughtered a lamb. And the lamb was what? The Egyptian deity. That means that Pesach corresponds to, Pesach is the counterforce of idol worship. It's the green kryptonite of idol worship. Right? If idol worship is on one end, Pesach represents the Jewish fight against idol worship. What is Shavuos? What did we receive on Shavuos? We received the Torah. Now, we know the Gemara says that if a person, the only way that one can dominate the evil inclination when we are being at least attempted, when we are being infected by the evil inclination, how do we ward it off? There's only one cure that the doctor who you know they had on TV. You always had the mad scientist who creates this disease, and only he knows the what the antidote is. And the good guy got infected. He's got 24 hours to find the mad scientist, and they always find him in the 2 minutes before the guys are going to die, and then he gets saved. The one who created the disease created the antidote. The only antidote for a person who's in physical passions, and a person who's got physical drives, the only way we can gain control of it is the study of Torah. When did Torah come down? It came down on Shavuos. So the second trait of Balaam, which is taiva, which is desire, physical desire, which holiday represents the counterforce? Shavuos. And the last one is kavod. Kavod means that a person, the last one is kina, jealousy. What is jealousy? Where is jealousy? If I'm jealous of you, let's say you have an ability, or you have a talent, or you have a possession, or you have money, or you have a home, or you have a job. I'm jealous of something you possess. You know where jealousy really comes from at the deepest level? At the deepest level, it means I lack trust in God. I don't trust the way God's running his world. One of the commentaries says jealousy actually means I'm angry at God. I'm jealous at you because of something you've got and something that you possess and something that you're good at, and I don't have that ability. That means I'm angry at God. I don't like the way God dealt the cards. Because if I want that, I want what you have. I want what you have. That's where jealousy comes from. That means I don't have proper trust in how God's running the world. What do we do on sukkahs? You go out to the sukkah, you build a flimsy roof out of schach, and you have to sleep in the sukkah, which represents that we put our trust in God, that God's protecting us. So the counterforce to jealousy, which at the worst level is lack of trust in God, that's where it's coming from. What's the counterforce? It's sukkahs. So what the donkey is really saying, what God is saying through the donkey, is saying to Balaam, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. You want to infect the Jewish people with the diseases called kina, taiva, and kavod, which you yourself are suffering from, and we'll see how badly he's suffering from it in a minute. The Jewish people have the three holidays. They celebrate the three holidays. It's not going to work. So give up the fight right now. Number one. Number two, other commentaries say, on the holidays, what did the Jewish people do on the three regalim? They all converged. All the men went to Yerushalayim. Nowadays, they go to Uman, right? But back well, that's only on Rosh Hashanah. But back in the day, what happens today in Uman, that happened every holiday where the men went up to Yerushalayim. They celebrated in Yerushalayim on the holidays. They had to bring sacrifices, on and so forth. Well, who did you leave out by the borders? And the children. The borders were completely unprotected. Yet God promises in the Torah that you'll go up 3 holidays and your enemies will not invade you. That's what it says. So what's the message is to Balaam? You're trying to hurt the Jewish people. You're trying to hurt the Jews. You want to go curse them and hurt the Jewish people. It's not going to work. They celebrate the 3 holidays, meaning the same way that they're protected during the 3 holidays, they're going to be protected from you. It's not going to work. Okay? So what does Balaam do? So then Balaam, that's what the donkey says to Balaam. So Balaam, instead of being shocked and saying, whoa, the donkey's talking, what does Balaam do? The donkey says, why'd you hit me? 3 times. 4 lines from the bottom. So Balaam just carries on the conversation. Because you mocked me by not being cooperative. If I had a sword in my hand, I would have killed you. I'd kill you right now on the spot. So at this point, the guys who are with him, the high officials, they're all trying to stifle a laugh. Now, here, this clown, this guy's going to curse an entire nation, but to kill his donkey, he needs a sword. He can't just curse the donkey. Just give the donkey a gift. Like, what do you got to? You need a what do you call? So there are commentaries that say that at a deeper level, the reason he didn't curse the donkey is because to go curse, you only get 1 shot. You only got 1 bullet in your gun, and you didn't want to waste it on the donkey. He needed it for the Jewish people, so he needed a sword for the donkey. Whatever the case is. So look what the donkey says. He says, "I'd kill you." Now here comes. Get ready, gentlemen. The donkey said to Balaam, I'm your donkey that you've ridden on your entire life. Have I ever done this before? Have I ever been uncooperative before? No, you're right. My bad. You're right. I apologize. Now, the Gemara says, one second, we got a few things we got to get through here. The Gemara says that there was a whole conversation here. Balaam's riding a donkey. So the high official said to Balaam, how come you don't have a horse? Horse is much more respectful, much more honorable. He says, I left it at home. So the donkey says, that's not true. Yeah, because you always ride me. He goes, no, once in a while. The donkey says, that's not true. You ride me all the time. You never had a horse. And not only you don't ride me by day, you use me for bestiality at night. Jonathan, that's what the donkey said. So you use me for, that's what the Gemara said.
Did he just? Sorry, I was kind of tuned out. Did he just say that? You there, Graham?
Yeah, I think so. That's kind of what I heard.
Weird.
As the donkey said to Balaam, right? That there was a whole conversation here. Balaam's riding a donkey. So the high official said to Balaam, how come you don't have a horse? Horse is much more respectful, much more honorable. He says, I left it at home. So the donkey says, that's not true. Yeah, because you always ride me. He goes, no, once in a while. The donkey says, that's not true. You ride me all the time. You never had a horse. And not only you don't ride me by day, you use me for bestiality at night. Jonathan, that's what the donkey said. So you actually use me for, that's what the Gemara says the donkey said to Balaam. And Balaam just says, oh, yeah, well, I guess. I guess. Right? He doesn't say anything. And even in the plain conversation, he just says, did I ever do this before? No, you're right. So there are 2 things here. First of all, why would Balaam commit bestiality? This is the first thing. Obviously, somewhat out of control. Honorable says, I left it. You're right. I apologize. Now, the Gemara says, one second, we got a few things we got to get through here. The Gemara says that there was a whole conversation here. Balaam's riding a donkey. So the high official said to Balaam, "How come you don't have a horse? Horse is much more respectful, much more honorable." He says, I left it at home." So the donkey says, "That's not true." Yeah, because you always ride me. He goes, "No, once in a while." The donkey says, "That's not true. You ride me all the time. You never had a horse. And not only you don't ride me by day, you use me for bestiality at night." Got it then. That's what the donkey said. So you actually use me for that's what the Gemara says the donkey said to Balaam. And Balaam just says, "Oh, yeah, well, yeah, I guess." I guess. Right? He doesn't say anything. And even in the plain conversation, he just says, "Did I ever do this before?" "No, you're right." So there are two things here. First of all, why would Balaam commit bestiality? This is the first thing. Obviously, it's somewhat out of control.
Maybe he was trying to access the mystery. I'm sorry. I can't. Like, ugh.
Yeah, maybe he was just trying to have some fun when he got a little drunk too. It's all about the same, right? Okay.
No, there's a big difference.
No, I think there may be some people out there who need to learn that difference.
Is that the same way that a person who wants to achieve prophecy? How do you achieve prophecy? Prophecy means working on oneself to perfect oneself in all areas of kedusha, of all areas of holiness. A person has to be able to self-control. He has to be humble. He's not allowed to get angry. He's not allowed to overindulge in any area of life. A person has to be completely in control, study Torah, pray, do everything right, and then get himself up to the pinnacle of holiness in order to even be a candidate for prophecy. And only then will he possibly achieve prophecy. If a person wants to rise to the highest levels of impurity, and that way be able to contact the occult or whatever the spiritual forces of impurity are. So what do you have to do? You have to do the same thing, but the opposite. You have to get to the highest point of impurity possible. So a person who wants to reach that level, he has to engage in all the worst forms of behavior, which is what is underlying the bestiality. That he's going to engage in all forms of behavior, which will bring him to that level of impurity. But even more than that, the Stipler asked the following question. Why didn't he contradict the donkey? I mean, this got to be pretty embarrassing, by the way. You got all these guys. Imagine what they're thinking. These guys are probably like, they can't show they're laughing. They're just biting their lip, trying not to laugh while this guy's getting shucked up by a donkey, and so they're trying to, and so why does the bill turn to, well, who are you going to believe, me or the donkey? You going to believe me or you going to believe the donkey? Right? Why he doesn't even try? He doesn't even try to contradict the donkey. Wouldn't you contradict? You contradict human beings, even when they were accusation correct. How come he doesn't try to contradict the donkey, especially saying? It must be true. Very good. The Stipler says, if God's already going to give the donkey speech, it's going to be truth. He's not going to give the donkey speech so he can tell funny jokes. He's not going to give the donkey speech so he can tell you, say it's spewing out nonsense or lies. If the donkey's already speaking, everybody in the room knows it's true. So Balaam doesn't even try to contradict the donkey. But then the Gemara, the Medrash says that we learn a life lesson from here. That if Balaam couldn't stand up in face of what the donkeys rebuke, so then in the ultimate, when a person has to face the heavenly court, after 120 years faces the heavenly court, so then a person is not going to be able to stand up to God's rebuke. That means we have it worked out, gentlemen. We think to ourselves, anybody who's ever contemplated what happens after they die, people think, God's going to say, why didn't you do this? And I'll tell him because of this. And why not this? Because of this. And why not this? Because I have a Yetzer Hara, and God knows my Yetzer Hara. Me and God were like this, we'll work it out one way or another. We got to graduate past that sort of thinking. A person at that level, a person at that point, at that stage, when a person is facing the heavenly court, basically, you get hit by a blast of truth. When a person's hit by a blast of truth, we're facing unadulterated truth, the same way that Balaam is facing unadulterated truth. So that's paralyzing. A person is faced by is put under the microscope of unadulterated truth. Listen, it's the good also, because then what a person did well, when a person did good, and the mitzvahs that a person does, it's also going to be exposed. But all of the things, the misdeeds are also going to be exposed, unless the person obviously does tshuva, and one can always do tshuva. And therefore, Balaam is in the state. Balaam can't even begin to contradict the donkey. Now, the question that's asked over here is, why is he being? God has taken him to task. What's he taken to task for? Look, let's take a look. Two more psukim. Vayigal Hashem esein Balaam. God opens Balaam's eyes. Vayaris malach Hashem nitzav baderech v'charbo shel teviyano. He sees the danger with the sword. Vayikod vayishtachol lapaf. He bows down. Now pay attention carefully. Next pasuk, 862, 2 lines from the top. Vayomer lo malach Hashem amahi kisas asam chazeh shalosh shagam. Why'd you hit him 3 times? Hine anochi yatzasi l'satan ki yarat haderech lenegdi. I came out. How does the Yards go translated? I came out. Behold, I went out to impede for you, hastened on a road to oppose me. So the Malach says, why'd you hit him 3 times? I was standing here blocking him. Why'd you hit him? What's the Malach doing? The Malach is asking him 2 questions. He's taking him to task for 2 things. He's saying, number 1, why did you need 3 messages here? You didn't see that something was up? You didn't see that there's a problem over here? You didn't see that something odd is happening in your life over here? You're on your way to curse the Jewish people, and very coincidentally, your donkey keeps veering off. You didn't pick up on that? You didn't pick up on the nuances, right? Sometimes people don't pick up social nuances, right? Here you got a spiritual nuance. You didn't pick up on that you're doing the wrong thing? You who are always reading signs and omens and this, that, and the other. I don't know if you guys ever saw the movie The Omen. You ever see the movie The Omen? Oh, I had nightmares for weeks. Oh, that was creepy. Right? Yeah. You don't remember that? Oh, Damien! Yeah, I had that ringing in my ears. Even The Exorcist wasn't as bad. Wow, that movie, that guy, that nurse, she got me, boy. I got good. Damien! Oh, terrible. So the what do you call it? Horrific. Why would I? And here I paid money to go and ruin my life for the next 3 weeks. To go. And we're funny. I went to saw The Shining with Jack Nicholson. I was in the lobby after 15 minutes. I couldn't take it, which was fine because my brother had been already out there after 10 minutes. So the two of us waited for our third friend, the weirdo. He had to watch the whole movie. Do I like Jack Nicholson? Do I know Jack Nicholson? I am Jack Nicholson. No, I don't know Jack Nicholson. I know Jack Nicholson without being in a strike could give you the creeps without being in a frightening movie. So what do you call? So what you watch? You're a man who's always looking at signs and omens and everything else, and all of a sudden you can't read signs now. That means you didn't want to. And Balaam's response is I'm skipping for 1 second. Look at Pasuk Lamed. We're gonna come back to Pasuk Lamed. Look down 2 lines. Look how Balaam responds. Balaam says to the angel. Pasuk Lamed 34, 7 lines to the top. Chotasi, I sinned. Ki lo yadati ki atani tzavli krasi over there. I sinned because I didn't know you were there. I don't know if you didn't know, so why is it sin? If you didn't know the angel was there, why is it considered sinning? The answer is you should have known. There are a lot of things in life where a person tries to plead ignorance. It's like you walk into the house and I open up the freezer and there's a pan full of brownies. So I eat some. My wife says, "Oh, that was for the kiddush this Shabbos." Because I didn't know. Oh, you didn't know, huh? I see. He didn't think to ask either. Right? You didn't know. You didn't want to know. I told you. My wife says to me, hey, I was in the kitchen. I got Friday morning. Wife says, hey, last night there were 2 fresh blueberry pies in the refrigerator. This morning there's only 1. How'd such a thing happen? I said, well, there was a blackout. The lights were out. I didn't see the second one. The what do you call it? Yeah. Oh, you didn't know. All of a sudden you just indulge without knowing. You're supposed to know. It's like if you see a burger on the table, you see a hamburger sitting here on the table, and you pick it up and you first eat it. Then you say, hey, you weren't supposed to eat it. That came from a McDonald's. I was bringing it for show and tell today. Show people what they're not supposed to eat. Oh, I didn't know. Yeah. Well, you should have known because we don't eat stuff without knowing. You don't just eat and then ask questions later. You should have known. You didn't see. You didn't see because you didn't want to see. A lot of times in life, I didn't. I didn't know. No, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I thought it was Hefker. Oh yeah. It was sitting on the jar of peanut butter was sitting on a shelf in a supermarket, and I thought it was Hefker. I thought I'm allowed to take it. I thought somebody lost it. Oh yeah. You're gonna lose it now for 4 years because you're going to jail. Right? What do you mean you didn't know? What do you mean you didn't know? 1 second. Go back for a second. The angel says, why'd you hit him 3 times? The first thing you're taken to task for is because you're going to curse the Jewish people and you're ignoring the signals. That's a big avera, buddy. And number 2, I'm taking you to task for causing pain to an animal needlessly. You're also, why'd you hit your animal for? That means that there's no such thing as, well, I did big averas, so forget about the little averas. There's a very famous story with the Vilna Gaon. There was a Jewish apostate, Jew who converted to Christianity, and he met the Vilna Gaon. And the Vilna Gaon put out a glass of tea. So the Jew picked it up and he took a sip of it. The Vilna Gaon and said, hey, you didn't make a bracha. So he goes, I make a bracha. He says, I worship idols. I commit adultery. I do all the worst averas. I make a bracha. The Vilna Gaon says, listen, buddy, for adultery and idol worship, you're toast. You're going to burn for that. But you're also going to burn every time you didn't make a bracha. You're not just to do big averas doesn't give you a dispensation for the little ones. It doesn't. Balaam, you're going to curse the Jewish people. Horrific. But you also cause pain to an animal needle, so you're taking a task for that too. Because if you were to realize that this isn't happening, so you could hit your donkey. You can't hit the donkey too hard. You can't go and abuse the donkey. You can't give it a tap. But if you go and you hit the donkey for no reason, you're also accountable for that. And then the biggest surprise of all, the angel, back to Pasuk Lamed Gimel, 5 lines to the top. The angel says to Balaam, Vatirani ha'ason, the donkey saw me, Vatate lefanai zashol shagalim, and it veered off 3 times. Ulai notza mipanai, it had not veered off. Ki ata gam oscha haragti v'osach yesi. I would have killed you and I would have kept the donkey alive. Had the donkey not veered off the path, I would have killed you and I would have kept. That's what the angel says to Balaam. And Rashi mentions over here that you could deduce from the words of the donkey, from the words of the angel. He says, had it not veered off, I would have killed it. I would have killed you and kept it alive. The deduction is that instead he kept Balaam alive and he killed the donkey. The donkey was killed by the angel. Why was the donkey killed by the angel? So here's a shocker. Take a look at Rashi. Take a look at Rashi on Lamed Gimel. It says 4 lines from the bottom, 5 lines from the bottom, right column of Rashi. If you find it, please show the person next to you. I would have kept it alive. The ata, everybody see that? 5 lines from the bottom, right column of Rashi, page 862. The ata, and now dibra, because it spoke, and it gave you rebuke, and you couldn't withstand the rebuke. In other words, you were embarrassed. You had nothing to say. Therefore, haragtia, I killed the donkey. So people shouldn't say that's the donkey that embarrassed Balaam with his rebuke. That means why? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is concerned for people's dignity. Here's a rat like Balaam, who's put to shame by his donkey. Yet, in order to spare him further shame, so the donkey is taken out of commission. So that people shouldn't see that donkey and say, ha, 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 that's Balaam. That's the donkey that got Balaam. And we find this halacha somewhere else as well. When a person commits bestiality and he's taken to court, the animal, if a person commits the sin of bestiality, the animal is also put to death. Why? Because one of the reasons the Gemara gives that people shouldn't see the animal. This guy's killed. He's stoned and based in, and then the animal is walking around and they're like, oh, there's Betsy. That's that's Reuben's girl. And then that's an embarrassment for Reuben. It's an embarrassment for Reuben's family. So that the Gemara says we have to take it out of commission. So you see over here how concerned we have to be for human dignity. This is concern for Balaam, who's no good to the core for his dignity. How concerned we have to be not to embarrass each other, not to shame each other, and so on and so forth. And that's why the Gemara says that Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, remember famous Gemara, hold for 1 second. The Gemara says Rabbi Yehuda Anasi was giving a shear. Remember the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda Anasi was giving a shear. Somebody came in, he had eaten garlic before he walked into the shear. Somebody had a shawarma, and he walked into the shear, and he had eaten garlic. And Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, Rebbe, who compiled the Mishnah, was trying to give a shear, and he couldn't continue. The smell was so overpowering. So he said, whoever ate the garlic, please leave. So Rabbi, now that's embarrassing. It's embarrassing in life to have somebody say, somebody smells bad, please leave. So Rabbi Chia understood that somebody's going to be embarrassed. So Rabbi Chia, who had not eaten the garlic, he got up and he walked out to take the blame, so that the other guy shouldn't be put to shame. When the other disciples saw that Rabbi Chia was doing, so they all got up and they all walked out. They understood. They caught his drift. No pun intended. They caught his drift, and so they all walked out to spare the guy the shame. That's the extent we have to go in order to spare other people's feelings. The famous story with Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. Moshe Feinstein got out of a car. He was picked up. His Talmidim picked him up. It's a very famous story, but Rabbi Gottlieb has an interesting twist on this. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein was picked up. He was driven to yeshiva. When he got to his yeshiva, he got out of the car, and somebody saw he was holding his fingers. So he said, Rebbe, what happened to your fingers? He said, when I got into the car, the guy who slammed the car door, he slammed the car door on my fingers. He says, yeah, but I didn't hear you yell. Most people, when they get, nobody shouldn't happen to anybody by our enemies, but a person gets his fingers caught in the door, so then they give a good yell. He said, you didn't yell. He says, yeah, I didn't want to yell because he would feel bad that he closed the door on my fingers. Now, the sensitivity to another person, this is a guy in pain and he's sensitive to the other guy. So Rabbi Gottlieb once explained that a person who gets his fingers caught in the door, there's a nerve impulse rushing to the brain that says pain. The brain is rushing pretty fast. He says by Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, the sensitivity impulse was so finely developed that impulse was also rushing to the brain, and it got to the brain at the same time as the pain, or slightly before, or at the same time, so that he's able to control his natural reaction to yell out. So that's if you got to be sensitive to a rat like Balaam, so all the more so how sensitive we have to be to people who are not rats. And by the way, we're not rats. Nobody here's a rat, right? And therefore, for our fellow man, we have to be very, very sensitive. What were we going to ask you, Tamar? Donkeys are not kosher. Could it be a kosher animal? No, it's got to be shechted properly. It's a good question. It's got to be shechted properly. If what a bestiality animal? You mean? Potentially bestiality. The animal is if the animal we know that the animal is bestiality, the animal has to be killed. No, that's a good question. It's an important question. Hopefully, it won't come up. So let's go on to the next
wonder
question.
why.
Yes,
don't do that. But why does the animal have to be killed? It's kind of messed up.
Moshe Rabbeinu, and we're gonna see.
It's like people are acting like, oh, the animal seduced the person. It's like, no, but that's bullshit. The person's a fucked up person. Like, I get putting the person to death, even though I think it's maybe a bit extreme, but like I get it. Whereas like putting the animal to death, like, dude, what the fuck? The animal didn't do anything.
Well, again, that's sort of the human tendency to think humans are special, better, and a certain narcissistic well, it can't be the human's fault. We got to blame the animal instead, simply because the animal can't talk back. Well, except in the case of Balaam here. Hey.
Well, or his donkey rather.
Exactly.
So I wonder, what are we going to find if we look for?
By the way, do we have time, or we'll have to save it for tomorrow? So I'm going to talk about. We'll have to talk about. Okay, we'll get there tomorrow anyway. Okay.
What does creative Judaism have to say on the matter? Oh wait, what's this? Dr. Shula Laterman. Parshah Balak.
This Parshah Balak tells a wonderful story about a kind of a strange one. It tells of Balak, king of Moab, that fears the defeat in the hands of the Israelites, and therefore he asked Balaam, who is a pagan a prophet, to curse the people. And of course, God intervenes, and every time Balaam hears from God not to participate in this endeavor. And yet, after 3 times that Balak is urging him and promising him gold and silver and everything from God not to participate in this endeavor, and yet after 3 times that Balak is urging him and promising him gold and silver and everything, finally he succumbs and he goes on his she-ass and is about to go to curse the Israelites. Well, God appears to in his dream, and he is very angry about his doing this. And so as Balaam is going with his assistants towards the Israelites, she sees in front of her an angel holding a sword standing in her way. And so she tries to get off the path and escape the angel. And then the Balaam hits her once, hits her again because she refuses to go in the path. And the third time, she turns back to him, as you will see in the picture, and opens her mouth and says to Balaam, "Why are you hitting me?" And then Balaam sees the angel and realizes just before she went down with him on the ground, he saw the angel and he realized that God is talking to him in this way. Now, what's the purpose of this? Why should she talk, and why is Balaam not seeing it and she is the one to see it before him? Well, this is the real purpose of this story. The story is to tell Balaam that God is the sovereign, and he is the one who can make talk, and he's the one who directs him, and he has to receive his orders and say what God wants him to say. And therefore, once he understands that, when he goes about with Balak, the king, up in the hill to curse the people, he ends up blessing them in the very famous blessing of saying, "How fair are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling, O Israel," and declaring no harm is in sight for Jacob, no vow in view for Israel. The Lord their God is with them. And this is the story that you see in the picture where the she-ass is turned to Balaam, talking to him.
Yeah, ultimately, I really like,
Sorry, what?
I was going to comment that I really like the story of Balaam because it's easy to spin him as the villain or as kind of a good guy. And that always makes for an interesting character. Okay.
Personally, I see no reason to valorize someone who was potentially screwing his donkey.
Well, I guess there's a part of me, I'm so out of touch with the 21st century, that falls too close to kink shaming for me to throw shade these days. Okay.
Pretty sure that's not a kink. Pretty sure that's a crime.
Okay, it's hard for me to tell from where I was coming from, back in my Sesame Street days. That looks very similar to a lot of stuff that people tell me I can't complain about. I shouldn't think is wrong and shouldn't mention. So, like I said, I err on the side of silence sometimes these days. Tag.
Yeah, Sound of Silence. It's a good song. Let's see if I can find something actually that's both.
Our congregation is very musical. We like to have people singing along with the prayers as soon as possible. And the first prayer we're going to learn is the Ma Tovu. The word Ma means what or how, and in this case it means how. The word Tovu means goodly. Ohaleka is are your tents.
No, this guy doesn't know what he's talking. If you say Ohaleka, you don't know what you're saying. Wah, wah.
Hi there, let's learn some tefillah. Now we're going to learn Ma Tovu. Matovu comes from the Torah in the book of Bamidbar, and it describes how beautiful the tents of the Israelites looked as they wandered through the wilderness. One of my favorite tunes is by Rick Recht, and it goes like this. Yana nai 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 nai, yana nai 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 nai, yana nai 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 nai, yai nai nai nai, yana nai 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 nai, yana nai 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 nai, yana nai 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 nai, yai nai nai nai. Matovu Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael, Va'ani Berov Chastecha, Avo Veitecha, Eshtachaveh El heichal kodshecha beiratecha. Eshtachave.
Yeah, honestly, not a huge fan of this. I prefer the tune that goes Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisroel v'ani merov chastecha avo beitecha ishtachaveh Elechel kodshecha beiratecha. I don't know which one do you prefer? I mean, maybe I don't know how my voice actually compares to his, but in terms of the tune,
I like your tune better.
yeah,
It flows better. Yeah, you can dance to it. I give it an 86.
Rewind and listen again.
yeah. No, we're not here to hear you sing, buddy. I'm trying to find someone explain what it actually means, because while I could, let's see.
Okay, good evening. Welcome to tonight's shir. The halacha shir is entitled "Saying Matovu." It's connected to this week's parsha, of course, because Parshah Balak contains the famous pasuk "Matovu Alechu Yaakov Mishkanesech Yisrael." If you look at the second box, and if you're listening online, then please email me at j.golka@gmail.com. I'll send you the handout. The Gemara in Sanhedrin, Kufhei Amud Beis says, Omer B'Yechon, Mibrachasai Shel Eiser Rasha, from the bracha that Balaam gave Klal Yisrael, Atzlomat Mohoye Beliboy. We can understand what he was actually thinking. Bikesh Leimar, he really wanted to say, Shelo Yehu Lohem Botik Nesias Botim Midrashis, that they shouldn't have Botik Nesias, that they shouldn't have shuls and Beis HaMedrash, and therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu flipped it, and instead he said, Matoivu Alecho Yaakov. Furthermore, he wanted to say, Lo Sishra Shechina Alehem, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu shouldn't dwell amongst you, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu flipped it around, and instead Balaam said, Umishkanesecha Yisrael. That's the Gemara in Sanhedrin. So we see that Matoivu Alecho Yaakov refers to the Botik Nesias and Botik Midrashis of the Jewish people. Now, in the Siddur of Reb Amram Gon, in the Seder of Reb Amram Gon, he mentions, and I think it's the first source that I've come across, that when you walk into a shul first thing in the morning, this is the pasuk you say. And even if you don't walk into a shul and this you begin your Seder HaTfilah in the morning, it pretty much begins with the pasuk of Matovu. This is the nusach of Reb Amram Gon. Hanichnas lebeis hakneses omer Matovu alechu Yaakov mishkanesech Yisrael v'ani berevchastecha avay beisecha yishtachav alehechel kodshecha b'yirasecha. So that's brought in the Gaonim, Reb Amram Gon. The Darkei Moshe, the Ramah, brings this also in halacha. He says, he quotes the Kolboy, Kosovo Kolboy, Kesheba Adon Beis HaKnesses, Yom Matovu Vani B'Rav Chastecha. So it seems a fairly well-established minhag, a fairly uncontroversial thing to do. However, The Marshal, this is 16th century Poland. The Marshal, cousin of the Ramah, he says, when I come to shul in the mornings, I begin with the second pasuk, and I skip out that one. Why? What could be the problem? Because this is a pasuk that Balaam said. Balaam was a Rasha. And furthermore, he intended that this bracha be a curse. This like it says in the last chapter of Sanhedrin. This is not the right place for it. So the Marshal skipped out Matovo Alecha. Yet we seem to all say it. Now I came across two interesting things. The first interesting thing, I actually just stumbled across this afternoon. I was in a chuppah, Baruch Hashem, lots of chasnas at the moment, King Yeru, and I was in a certain base of medrash, and I saw this sefer called Slusa da Avraham. So I was curious to know what did he say about Matovu. So he's got the Slusa da Avraham was written by someone called Avram Landau, and there are ha'oras by his grandson, Reb Nachum Mendel Landau. And in the ha'oras on Matovu, he says the following: Roisi b'shal shumas marshal shekosav shelo lema pasuk zeh mishum she'amru Bilam ayin shal. Okay, that's the above. That's what we just quoted. V'zeh tema. I don't understand the marshal. The ha'amru, because the Gemara says in Brachas Yud Beis on base, bikshu likver Parshas Balak b'kriyas Shema. Actually, Chazal thought so much of these psukim that they wanted to introduce it into our daily saying, our daily recital of Kriyas Shema in the brachas of Kriyas Shema. That's how important it was. It's just that they didn't fix it in a tefillah because it's too much of a tircha de tzibur. Shul is long enough and we don't need to make it any longer. The Gemara says that the brachas of Balaam, actually, his initial intention of the klala did come about. However, Mikol Mokum Ha'isa b'Sanhedrin, the Gemara says in Sanhedrin Kufay, which is the Gemara in Chelek, the pasuk zeh initial bracha. The one exception was the bracha of Matovu. So says this Pirush in the Tzilusa da Avraham, I don't understand the Marshal's objection. Number one, that Chazal themselves wanted to introduce this as in our tefillah. They only did it because of Tircha de Tzibur. And second of all, all of them, actually the klolas did come about, apart from Matovu, saying that even though the intention was a klal, it never actually came about. Furthermore, there's a Pirush on the Siddur of the Yavit. The Yavit is a very famous Siddur, and he also, in this Pirush called Eight Erez, this is the next box in paragraph 4, he quotes the Shuvas of the Marshal, and he says he's medaling the pasuk Rishon Matovu Lecha Balaam, etc. Ach b'cholach Siddurim shelefanenu isa. At the end of the day, if you look in all the Siddurim, and this is written, this is on the Siddur of the Yavits. The Yavits is some time ago, 150 years ago, whatever. But if you look in your Art Scroll Siddur or any other Siddurim that we've got plenty here, they all have them in there. As you walk into shul, they quote Matovu. So it's become widespread, accepted practice that Klal Yisrael say Matovu in the morning. Furthermore, he carries on with the Siddur Yavits Hanitzos Mechodosh Mevaer. He explains. Interestingly, the next pasuk that we say, Vani b'chastecha, he says, Vani b'chastecha is keneged Avraham, shenikra ish hachesed. So that refers, Vani b'chastecha refers to Avraham Avinu. Heichal kodshecha, who keneged Yitzchak, shene'ekad al gabi hamizbeach b'mokum kodesh. So when we say Heichal kodshecha, that's a reference to Yitzchak. B'yirosecha is that's keneged Yaakov she'oma manoira hamokum hazeh. So it's a beautiful thing. As you're walking into shul and you're saying the pasuk of Vani b'chastecha, you're referring to the others, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Now, most Siddurim will list Matovu and Vani b'chastecha, and actually they'll say there are 5 psukim that we say. However, some Siddurim set out 10 psukim, and that corresponds to the number in the minyan, and that's a good way of sort of counting the people. You shouldn't count individuals. So you say the 10 psukim as you come into shul, you've got a minyan. If you've got 10 people, you sort of count off the people by way of the psukim. And some say that there are actually 13 psukim. Now that corresponds to the 13 bowings in the Beis Hamikdash. There's a Mishnah in Shkolim, that's the bottom box on the page. The Mishnah in Shkolim says, there were 13 bowings in the Beis Hamikdash. Where exactly would they bow? There are 13 sha'arim. There were 13 gates, entrances, and each time you would go through these one of these sha'arim, you would actually bow down. And therefore, as we come into shul, there are 13 psukim, according to some sidurim, which correspond to the 13 bowings in the Beis HaMikdash. Now, just as a postscript, there's a very nice paragraph in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. If you look at the top of the next page, the Kitzur says, when he's talking about the Seder Hayom and coming to shul, he says, mitzvah lorotz k'shahilech Beis HaKnesses, there is a mitzvah to run to shul. Oile Beis HaMedrash, oile Sham mitzvahs, will run to mitzvahs. V'lochein, afilu b'Shabbos mutzu lorotz l'dvar mitzvah. On Shabbos, even though we've discussed it, I think last week, exercise on Shabbos, you shouldn't be running on Shabbos. Okay, that was last week. But for a Dvar Mitzvah, even on Shabbos would be permitted. Avol, b'soich Beis HaKnesses, u'v'soich Beis HaMedrash also loretz. It's not appropriate to be running inside a shul or a Beis HaMedrash. U'v'boy lefnei HaPesach, and when you come to the entrance of the shul, yishohem ma'at, you should just wait a moment. Shelo yichmeis b'pesach pitoim. Don't sort of barge in. Don't just burst into a shul. You're walking into a holy place. And one person should be a little bit more sort of introspective as he walks into shul, a little bit more, a bit of awe, AWE. It's as if you're asking permission to come in. And then you come in. And you walk in as if you're walking into a palace, coming into a king. So there should be a certain trepidation. And I mention that because, when we left the shuls just before COVID, seems like a lifetime ago, and we went through that very strange period in recent, it wasn't that long ago, and we said goodbye to the shuls, it was a very strange experience, sort of not being allowed into the shuls, and then sort of, coming back weeks, months, whatever it was later, and beginning to appreciate what a shul is and how there should be a certain reverence as we walk into a shul. And therefore, saying these psukim and matovu and the other psukim certainly enhances that feeling. So, saying matovu is based on a pasuk in this week's Sedra. The Gemara says in Sanhedrin that it's a reference to the Botik Nesias and the Botik Midrashes. And therefore, the Rav Amram Gaon, he's the first source that I came across that brings this, that when you come into a shul, you say matovu alechu Yaakov. There was opposition to it. The Marshal says it's inappropriate to say it. Balaam said it. It was meant as a klala. However, the defense is there. And like I said, in the comments of the Tzdusa Avram, Menachem Mendel Landau, the grandson of the author, he says that I don't really understand that because after all, Chazal wanted to introduce this parsha on a daily, the daily tefillahs of Klal Yisrael. They just didn't because of Tirchat Tzibura. And furthermore, the pasuk of Matova of all the psukim was the one that never actually transformed into a klala. So he doesn't really understand the objection of the Marshal, and so too the Pirush in the Siddur of the Yavitz, he says this is common practice because at the end of the day, even though he intended for a klala, it is a very, very beautiful bracha, and that seems to be the mainstream practice in Klal Yisrael to say Matova as we enter a shul. And whether you say a total of 5 psukim or 10 psukim or 13 psukim, there are different practices. But certainly it enhances, like the Kitzur says, our feeling of reverence as we walk into a shul, understanding this is, Maneira HaMocham Hazeh.
So right now I'm actually looking to see if Creative Judaism has an episode for this week because it looks right now I can't find one. No, there is one. Ancient aircraft. This should be interesting.
Are those like Jewish Vimanas?
Maybe. At least from what I saw, it maybe looks a bit more like giant bat creatures.
Oh, that's a little less exciting for me.
Hi,
that's a
I'm
little
David
more
Taub,
Fallout.
and
That's a
welcome
little
to
more
Creative
Fallout
Judaism.
76.
Hi, I'm David Taub.
Funny. Actually, I don't know what this is, in all honesty. No, this looks like a camel, actually.
Hi, I'm David Taub, and welcome to the Parsha Rabbit Hole, where I find something weird in the weekly Torah portion and follow it all the way down until it gets even weirder. This week's rabbit hole eventually gets us to hot air balloons and ancient lunar colonies.
No one knows where, when, or how man first landed on the moon.
I do.
But as always, we have to get there. This week's episode is dedicated to my daughter in honor of her birthday, which is next week. I actually had to pay myself $180 for that dedication, but it was well worth it for the opportunity to support something I care about in honor of someone that I love. So if you'd like to dedicate an upcoming episode of the Parshah Rabbit Hole and help me to keep on digging, go to creativejudaism.com/donate. All right, let's get started. This week's Torah portion, Parshas Balak, tells us the story of how the Moabite king Balak hired a non-Jewish prophet named Balaam to curse the Jews. And it didn't work because God didn't want it to, and Balaam is instead compelled to bless the Jews, and then he goes home. And in the Parsha, that seems to be the end of his story. And then it moves on to an episode in which the Moabites and the Midianites entice the Jews into doing some really bad stuff. But a little bit later on in Parshas Matos, we hear about a war that God commanded the Jews to wage in response to this event. And there, Balaam is mentioned as having instigated that event and is counted among the enemies that the Jews fought. It also tells us that the army carried with them Klei HaKodesh, holy objects. And Rashi tells us that these holy objects were actually used in the fight. He says that the holy objects referred to here are specifically the Urim, the Ark, which is the box that the tablets were in.
Yeah, the Ark of the Covenant, the chest the Hebrews used to carry around the Ten Commandments.
And the Tzitz, which is a golden headband thingy that was worn by the Kohen Gadol, and it had the name of God engraved on it. Now, Rashi doesn't tell us how the Ark came into play, but he does tell us how the Tzitz did. Based on a midrash, he says that Balaam was with the kings of Midian, and he used his sorcery to make them fly through the air, and he flew along with them. But when the Jews showed them the Tzitz with the name of Hashem engraved upon it, they all fell to the ground. So this is something that is a huge part of how I think about the whole Balaam story, even though it's not even really a part of the story as it's told in this week's Parsha, where generally he's pretty boring. There's a lot of talking. He's asked to curse, and then he doesn't curse, and then he blesses, and he doesn't really do much dramatic, epic stuff. And then eventually he's forced by God to say some really nice stuff, and then he just goes away. But if you piece it together with these added details from Midrash, that story actually ends with a magical aerial battle. So I decided to take this idea of people flying and use it as a starting point to explore aeronautics in Torah. So that's where this week's rabbit hole starts, with the idea of human flight and aircrafts and how that pops up in unexpected places. If you're ready to see where that goes, let's dive in. Okay, so we're going to start with flying camels. I've mentioned it a couple of times already in previous episodes, and now we finally have the chance to really get into it.
Let's look at the flying camel. First of all, a little theory.
The term gamla parcha, or flying camel, is used a few times in the Talmud as a possible mechanism for traversing long distances in an otherwise impossibly short amount of time. For example, the Gemara discusses a case in which two people claim to have witnessed a murder on Sunday morning in the city of Surah, and then two other people come and say that they were with those first two witnesses on Sunday evening in the city of Neharda. Now, according to the results I got by plugging some coordinates into some website, those two cities are about 125 miles apart. So the Gemara continues that according to Rava, the court does the math and figures out if that timing would work out, and if not, then those witnesses are considered to be fraudulent.
I can't be two places at once, right?
Then the Gemara asks, hey, isn't that obvious? Like, it seems like an obvious thing that if there seems to be a contradictory testimony based on anomalous location information, you would do the math and figure it out. And the Gemara answers that Rava is trying to tell us that just in case you might think we should consider the possibility that they used a flying camel, that's why we went into detail about the process of doing the math based on normal means of travel. Okay, so the first question is, are we talking about actual flying camels? Rashi says flying camels means a particular type of camel that's extremely fast, like a bird that flies. So it seems like the word flying is being used figuratively. I did see some places that reference sources where flying camels seem to be mentioned in a literal sense, but I couldn't track down the original sources for that. But in the case of that Gemara that we just looked at, it doesn't really matter if it actually existed or not, because the whole point of it is that it's something that's so improbable that we don't consider it as a possibility. But there's another Gemara that looks at the flying camels a little bit differently. It's discussing a case where someone found a get, a Jewish divorce document, in the city of Surah, signed by some guy, Anan Bar Chia, and it was notarized, so to speak, as having been signed in that city in Surah. Now, the Gemara doesn't explain this, but it seems like the guy, Anan Bar Chia, claims this isn't his. And if not, and he didn't intend to divorce his wife, then finding a divorce document would end up being a huge headache for him, because now he and his wife aren't married anymore, and now they have to deal with that whole mess. What the Gemara does say is that the court searched for any other Anan Bar Chia, and they found one, but there were witnesses that said that the second Anan Bar Chia was in the city of Neharda on the day that that divorce document was signed in Surah. So Rava says he doesn't have to worry about it. We can assume that it might be the other Anan Bar Chia, and that he traveled from one city to the other so fast using one of three methods. The first is the flying camel. The second is kfitza, which is some sort of miraculous way to shorten long distances. I've used the word teleportation for this in a previous rabbit hole. And the last option, the other so fast using one of three methods. The first is the flying camel. The second is kfitza, which is some sort of miraculous way to shorten long distances. I've used the word teleportation for this in a previous rabbit hole. And the last option is that he sent a messenger and did it remotely. Whatever the method, it adds some doubt and makes this document not apply to Anan Bar Chia, and the whole thing, I guess, just goes away. So first of all, I like that list: flying camel, teleportation, or messenger. But what's relevant here is that in this case, the flying camel is considered a real possibility, not just a theoretical possibility that's discounted because of its improbability. Pinchas talks about this, but they don't address whether or not the flying camels are real. Their problem is why Rava seems to think it's probable enough to consider in one case, but not in another. So the answer that they propose is that in the case of the get, the divorce document, this second guy, the second Anan Bar Chia, is trying to sabotage some other guy's marriage. So he'd be motivated to use a flying camel. But in the murder witnesses case, they only make their own testimony less believable if they used a flying camel. So therefore, we don't think that they would have been motivated to do that. So a couple of things about this. First of all, this idea that the second Anan Bar Chia is purposely trying to mess with this other guy's marriage. I don't know if he's just taking advantage of the fact that he has the same name as some other guy, and he just found out, he looked in the yellow pages, he's like, I bet I could sign documents in this guy's name. Or maybe it just so happens that he actually hates the first Anan Bar Chia. Whatever it is, it's funny that he's using the fact that they have the same name to go sign documents in his name. And then the other thing that's funny about it is that he'd be so excited about messing up this guy's marriage with fraudulent paperwork that he would employ the use of a supernatural ungulate. But also the whole logic of this is interesting to me, that if someone has a plan to hurt someone else, then they'll pull out all the stops. But I have a problem with the part about the murder witnesses. So yeah, giving a testimony with anomalous location information messes up your story. So why complicate things by flying around on a flying camel and making your story sound made up? But that logic only works if you're planning on witnessing a murder, which would be weird. But if you're just having a crazy night out, hopping around from city to city on your private flying camel, and towards the end of the night you happen to witness a murder, then there's nothing you can do about it. Nobody plans their days based on what would sound most believable in a testimony.
5 minutes ahead of schedule. Right on schedule.
I didn't see anybody mention or answer this question. If you have any ideas, please put it in the comments. Okay, now moving past the flying camels to another instance of flying in Gemara. In a couple of different places, the Gemara references a weird idea when talking about Doeg, who was an advisor to Shaul HaMelech, or King Saul, and was an antagonist to David HaMelech, King David. But in Midrash and Gemara, we get a lot more detail about how he was originally a great Torah scholar. And one of the things that's mentioned about him is that he knew 300 halachic rulings about a migdal hapareach ba'avir, a tower that flies in the air. Now, the whole point of that example in both places that it's mentioned is to be impressive, because it's such an extremely strange or obscure thing to know so many laws about. But the Gemara doesn't explain what it is. What's a flying tower? Rashi offers a few possibilities. One is that it's the letter Lamed that kind of has a tower poking up out of the top that makes it taller than all the other letters. And then what the Gemara means is that Doeg could learn hundreds of laws just from the shape of that one letter.
Excuse me, this is... Wait, am I? Yeah. Excuse me, this is honestly kind of ridiculous. Poreach. Poreach means flowering, I'm pretty sure. So I think it's just referring to, like, you know, the top of a turret, you know, turreted tower, how it has like a little bit that kind of like plumes out, you know, like how a rook, how the top of the rook is wider than the neck, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, because of the crenelments on top and such.
Yeah.
For a second there, I thought you were saying pornea, and it's like
Poreach.
Yeah. No. I caught it the second time. It was like the first time I was like half listening.
Let me see if I can find this.
I was going to say it almost sounds like he's talking about he got around to my Vimanas.
Yeah, I was thinking that when he was talking about the towers. Let's see. So it's Poreach. So Parach.
Yeah. When I hear flying towers, it's like Vimanas.
Let's see, Parach.
While you're looking that up, the other thoughts I had is, you know, in all of the traditions, you got the Barak from Islam that kind of fits in there with a flying animal. And I'm surprised he didn't mention Ezekiel. Ezekiel had, you know, he had a spaceship from God he got to fly around in. Hey.
Yeah. So here, Barach means budge, sprout, or shoot. Flourish. Let's see, is there any other contexts? Baricha, hatch, also sprout, young of bird. Farhun, maybe it's like connected to like the flying of a bird. I don't know. That like maybe it's like it shoots out. So it's almost kind of like how a rocket shoots out, you know, exhaust. That's the only thing I can think of, that it's sprouting. In essence, it's sprouting fire. But I mean, you know, in the case of a rock, break out. So it could be of leprosy and like eruptions. So
that works for me. And again, I'm fine if you have a cool interpretation of a flying tower. I don't need more than that. Okay.
I'm pretty sure by that context, though, if it's erupting or like, yeah, if it's like erupting like within a disease like setting, I wonder if that could actually just refer to a camel that spits. That it's erupting from its mouth. It's an erupting camel. It's a spitting camel. I don't know.
Oh yeah. Well, another angle you could go there is kind of the volcano angle, where you have the the top a little bit wider and the sprouting and shooting out and stuff. Yeah. It's always fun to come up with interpretations.
Yeah. Let's see. Go back here.
That kind of has a tower poking up out of the top that makes it taller than all the other letters. And then what the Gemara means is that Doeg could learn hundreds of laws just from the shape of that one letter when it's used in verses in the Torah. Another possibility he offers is that it could be Migdal Bavel, the Tower of Babel, which didn't fly, but I guess since the intention of it was for it to reach the heavens, then it could be called a tower that flies in the air, I guess. I don't know what kind of laws can be derived from the Tower of Babel, but I guess that's the point, that it would be impressive if someone could. Then Rashi says that in his opinion, it's talking about a type of freestanding wooden closet or cabinet that's placed at the entrance to another space, which is discussed in a Mishnah about Tumas oil, the ritual impurity that's transferred through being in the same physical space, like a room or a courtyard. So as far as I understand it, which is barely, the way this flying tower is being used here is as a space that's kind of its own space, but also kind of part of a larger space. So exploring it would help define the parameters of those laws. That third answer, the one that Rashi likes, seems to be the most...
So it's a TARDIS.
Even though it's the most normal and, dare I say, boring, I like it when the Talmud engineers very specific scenarios to test the limits of a legal concept. But according to Yad Rama, even this seemingly boring version requires an exciting twist. He seems to be of the opinion that, yeah, it's talking about the laws of transmitting ritual impurity through a shared physical space, but this wooden cabinet isn't just freestanding, it's floating, which seems to me like a way of literally air gapping this cabinet so that it's even more of an independent space within this larger space. But he says the only way for that to happen would be through using a miracle, or by using divine names, or by using magnets. So according to this, the tower that flies through the air is a wooden cabinet that floats miraculously, or through Kabbalah magic, or through magnetic levitation. But the Ben Ish Chai doesn't like this answer. He doesn't explain what the issue would be with the magnetic levitation and why he doesn't accept that. But with regard to the other options, he says that Jewish law wouldn't go into such detail about cases that could only be achieved through supernatural means. Instead, he starts talking about a technology that existed in his time, which he says is called Merkab al-Hwa, which in Arabic means something like air vehicle. Now, I can't say for sure exactly what technology he's talking about. He lived from 1835 to 1909, and the Wright brothers' first flight was in 1903. So maybe he could be talking about an airplane?
Airship.
But it seems more likely to me that he's talking about some sort of dirigible or airship.
Yeah.
The first powered and steerable airship was built and flown in 1852, and then the technology continued to grow from there. So it seems like the Ben Ish Chai is talking about an airship. And he says that even though this technology had been innovated in recent times, he says that early Torah flight was in air vehicle. He says it's called Merkab al-Hwa, which in Arabic means something like air vehicle. Innovated in recent times, he says that early Torah scholars definitely had access to this technology, even before the times of Doeg, and possibly all the way through the time of the Mishnah. But then this knowledge was lost and eventually re-innovated by the scholars of Europe. So according to this, the tower that flies through the air is a blimp.
Hey there, blimpy boy, flying through the sky so fancy-free.
But the most exciting revelation here is the idea that ancient Torah scholars already had aeronautic technology 2,000 years before it was officially invented, which is very cool. So when I found that, I was stuck for a long time on the Arabic. Fortunately, I have very smart friends who were eventually able to help me out with that. But before they did, I tried digging around for anything on the internet where somebody discusses that to see if I could try and piece it together and get some insight. And while I was digging around, I found a forum thread discussing another fascinating thing from the Ben Ish Chai, which maybe I'll get into in a future rabbit hole. And then someone on that thread mentioned this thing about airships, and in response to that, someone posted a link without any explanation. So I clicked on it, of course, and whoa. It's a commentary from Yonason Abeshitz, and maybe you've heard about it before, but I hadn't, and I thought it was extremely cool.
He was Abeshitz. I forget if he was the one who was accusing people, or let's see, Abeshitz. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was a Sabbatean.
I was going to say, I thought at first he said ape shit, but yeah.
In 1724 in Prague, he was suspected of being a Sabbatean. Despite denouncing the Sabbatean movement on Yom Kippur, the accusations continued. Therefore, in 1736, Abeshitz was not only appointed Dayan, which means judge, or kind of like it's a leader of Prague and not chief rabbi. He became rabbi of Metz in 1741, and in 1750 he was elected rabbi of the three communities Altona, Hamburg, and Vansbeck. Let's see, Sabbatean controversy. Abeshitz was again accused of his secret Sabbatean beliefs, following a suspicion that he had issued amulets recognizing the messianic claims of Shabbatai Tzvi. The controversy started when Yaakov Emden found connections between the Kabbalistic and homiletic writings of Abeshitz with those of the Sabbatean Judah Leib Prosnetz, whom Abeshitz knew from his days in Prosnetz. Rabbi Jacob Emden accused him of heresy. The majority of the rabbis in Poland, Moravia, and Bohemia, as well as the leaders of the three communities, supported Abeshitz. The accusation was utterly incredible. But anyway, it turns out, I think after his death, they ended up finding. All right, let's see.
From what you're saying, I've never heard of him before. He sounds like a stepping stone from Sabbatai Z to Frankism. Okay.
In 1760, the quarrel broke out once more when some Sabbatean elements were discovered amongst the students of Abeshitz's yeshiva. At the same time, his younger son, Wolf Jonas Abeshitz, presented himself as a Sabbatean prophet and was close to several Frankists, with the result that the yeshiva was closed. Ooh, this is interesting. According to the words of Joseph Franz Molitor, who was the grandson of Rabbi Eibeshitz, Baron Thomas von Schoenfeld, an apostate Jew who inherited his grandfather's collection of Sabbatean Kabbalistic works. He eventually left the Sabbatean movement and founded a Masonic lodge called the Asiatic Brethren, one of the 4 Illuminati lodges in Vienna. After his uncle's death on August 10th, 1791, he was offered the leadership of the Frankist movement, which he refused. Katz disputes his claim, however, saying Schoenfeld was a member of the Dobruschka family of Burro-Num and was in no way related, either by blood or marriage, to Eibeshitz. According to Gershom Scholem, the ideology of the Asiatic Brethren mixed Kabbalistic and Sabbatean ideas jumbled together with Christian theosophic doctrines. Some of Eibeshitz's descendants are the Yiddish novelist and Holocaust survivor. I don't know why it says but Yisrael Yehoshua Eibeshitz, prolific author and Holocaust survivor, and noted researcher, 1916 to 2019, Chava Rosenfarb, 1923 to 2011, Chaim Kreiswith, 1918 to 2001, event for Belgium, and Shmuel Vosner, 1913 to 2015, a prominent Haredi rabbi and posek, decider of Jewish law who lived in Bnei Brak, Israel. His granddaughter was the Breslau poet and intellectual Lucy Domeyer, born Esther God. Interesting.
No, very interesting. I was, like I said, totally unaware of the character. That seems like this is very much part of the path from Sabbateanism into Frankism. And from what they're saying, he very well may not have been Sabbatean, but at the very least, he was tolerant and not opposed to those ideas being discussed in his community. Okay.
Yeah, at the very least, he was surrounded by them.
And didn't sit there and speak out against them too much. Yep.
I mean, apparently he did. It's just a matter of was it more of kind of for show?
Well, that's why I appended too much to what I said about him speaking out against it. You know, you can make waves towards it and not be too vehement. Heck.
So, vehement or vimana? It was also lighter than air, sky chariot.
Funny. Yeah, no, it's a little slurring, but yeah, absolutely.
Tower of Babel, which was built several generations after the flood. In Chumash, it doesn't say exactly what their plan was, just that they wanted to make a name for themselves to protect them from being scattered all over the face of the earth. According to Jonas and Eibeshitz, their goal was to get above the rain clouds so that they would be safe if God ever chose to flood the earth again. Then he starts talking about flying machines, and he says that the nature of wind is to blow upward. So presumably a flying apparatus should just get carried up higher and higher. But he says the air gets very thick and heavy up there and pushes the flying machine back down to earth. Now, I just want to note that this was written sometime in the early 1700s, so there were no actual flying machines yet. So this is all theoretical for him. Anyways, he goes on and says that if you could get a flying machine above this thick air, then it would be possible to go higher and higher until it even reached the moon. And he says that there are books that have been written about how to construct a ship like this. If anybody has any ideas which books this might be, please put it in the comments. Then he explains that this is what the people who built the Migdal Bavel, the Tower of Babel, were trying to do. They wanted to establish a moon colony where they'd be safe from any future floods. But how do they get past that thick air? And that's what the tower was for, to get them higher than the thick, heavy air, and then from there they could launch a ship to fly to the moon and colonize it. So, yeah, very cool. Ancient spaceships and moon colonies.
Why don't you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon?
Technically, maybe even prehistoric spaceships and moon colonies. So that's very, very exciting to me. Okay, so there's one more thing about the topic of flying that I actually discovered years ago, and it's one of my favorite things in Hasidus, or Jewish mysticism. It's from the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe of Chabad, and he's addressing the idea that humanity has gotten progressively more knowledgeable throughout time, as is clearly evident from all the secular knowledge, the math and science and stuff that has been developed throughout history, that the generations before it was invented couldn't understand. And the conclusion one could draw from this is that if you go back through time, people are more and more foolish, or at least ignorant. And he says that that conclusion is completely wrong. Yes, it's true, he says, that the scholars of the world have gained a lot of knowledge compared to those who preceded them, but that doesn't mean that ancient people were foolish. In fact, they were actually even more knowledgeable, just in different things, because all of the knowledge of current smart people is focused on the physical world, like military technology. And it gives two examples. Eish Meslach Kachas, which is a term borrowed from verses in Torah, but here it seems like it's talking about some sort of advancement in artillery or explosives. Maybe it's grenades or something. I'm not sure. This really isn't my thing. Military history, I have no idea. I know nothing about it. If any of you out there are military history buffs and think you might know what that means, please let us know in the comments. Anyways, then he gives a second example, Svina Peirachas Ba'avir, a ship that flies in the air. Now, the Alter Rebbe passed away in 1812, so this is before airships. But hot air balloons were developed in the 1700s, and I looked it up, and they were indeed used for military applications during that time. So it seems like the ship that flies through the air here is a hot air balloon.
The next part of the race, announced the referee, is balloons to the moon.
So the Alter Rebbe is mentioning this as an example of advanced modern technology that shows that the scientists of the time had a great understanding of the physical world and how to manipulate it. But he continues, the earlier generations had an understanding of how the world worked spiritually. And the example he gives is the magicians of Egypt, who were the scholars of Egypt. And they knew how to turn a stick into a snake. And he gives another example of Balaam, who knew how to perform magic and use incantations. And this, he says, not even the greatest modern scholar can do. So what I love about this is, first of all, it addresses something that has always bothered me. I find that people often talk about ancient people as if they were naive or ignorant, and that bugs me because it doesn't make any sense. We have the same brains. And sometimes people try to make it sound a little bit better and say, oh, it's not their fault. They may have had the capacity to understand it, but we needed to accumulate knowledge and build one idea on top of another first before we could get to all of the new things that were developed and invented. But that doesn't work for me because there are some ideas that seem like they really don't need to build on previous things. It's just a flash that someone had one day. Like, why did it take until the 17th century for people to figure out that, hey, maybe we should actually try to control science experiments? Maybe that'd be a good idea. So the reason why I like this answer is because it does something that Chassidus does in a lot of places. It splits the whole thing into two and says, yeah, we've been getting smarter in one way, but less smart in another way. So I always love it when Chassidus pulls that trick of splitting an idea into two. But in this case, I particularly like it because it gives us a way to appreciate what we have that people before us didn't, but at the same time understand that we have our own blind spots. And also it presents the possibility that maybe looking at things in a way that might seem outdated or even obsolete could actually give us insight into the world that we wouldn't otherwise be able to understand. All right, that's it. That's the rabbit hole. As always, questions, things I missed, put it in the comments. Thank you for following me down the rabbit hole. Feel free to use our complimentary airship to get back up to the surface.
Wait, what? Well, that was a quick airship. Wow, that was interesting.
Yeah, no, you hit on something that was with some combinations of ideas that are definitely I need to explore more. And that's the idea of the Tower of Babel as a Vimana suffering from failure to launch. And when you tie that into the idea of the motivation was a moon colony, which ties into the idea of, sin, moon god of Haran. It's like, yeah, there are definitely some ideas there I need to explore a little more. Okay.
Always glad to be able to introduce you, even if it's not directly, to something. Let's see. So, So I guess he's still uploading it now, so we'll just start here. Let's see, what am I looking for? Oh right, Torah prayer. Actually, I almost forgot. Let's see. Let's see while I'm doing this. Where is it?
بحرب منوحة قد سمريه نادى يشر ويشقيونه يدل كسبديه كالبنا نضيك الأتي يديه بكار بعضهما ندن نضطي شاميني كاسا كتشلا تبخي
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו להניח תפילין.
كما يغض ويشير منزلات مبعد نائمي يشير بعسير تبقاني أربل بتزاني رتيت سفاني يتمير بلو بناتي ينو بدرايا بالتعالي أقونا طلايا بالتريبي بدرو يدعى لما كلاتي كنياتي شقيونه يقنو كسبديه كالبنا نضيك الأتي يديه بكار بعضهما ندن نضطي شاميني بكار بعضهما ندن نضطي شاميني كاسا كتشيلا تبحينا وجتاتو كالبنا لتانو أتيراتو البكتة يفتح بحامري لمتى ينسك بمسكه كما يموت ويشير مسلة من بعد نائمي يشير يازر تابقني البالي بتساريراتي تسفني يتمير بالو بناته ينو بدرايا بالتعري أبونا طلايا بالترب يدرو يدا إما كلاتي كنياتي بحرب منوحة قد سمريه نادى يشر ويشقيونه يدل كسبديه كالبنا نضيك الأتي يديه Bikara bazuma nudana mutishamini. Oh, casa kuchila tapkhina bajtatu karpana latanu atiratu abakada yaqahu bihamri bata yasuku bimiskiu kama yabudu wa yashiru manzilata mi ba'd na'imi yashiru bi'asiru tabqani adali bizani ratit safani itamiru balubinatihu يلو بدرايا بالتعاري أقونا طلايا بالتريبي بدو يدعى إما كلاتي كنياتي شقيونه يفنوك سواديه كربنا مبيك العتي يديه بيكارا بازوما رونا نموتي شاميني بيكارا بازوما رونا نموتي شاميني كاسا كوتشيلا تبحينا وجتاتو كربنا لتانو أثيراتو البكدا يفتح بحامري لمتى ينسك بمسكه كما يمد ويشير مسلة من بعد نئيمي يشير يازر تابقني البالي بتساريراتي تسفني يتنير بالو بناته ينو بدرايا بالتعري أبونا طلايا بالترب إدرو يدا إما كلاتي كنياتي
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר תשענו במצוותיו וציוונו להניח תפילין. Oh, wait. No. Alright. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר תשענו במצוותיו וציוונו על מצוות תפילין. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מיותיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשתם נאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. And then, let's see. It's kind of difficult to type with this. Prayer for Torah. Prayer for How do you like my shin wrap?
Nice. It looked like you were, getting ready for battle.
This might hinder your ability to battle. You could definitely do this. This would work, but beyond that, I don't know.
Well, I thought having God on your side would help your ability to battle, and that was the point. So.
Well, no, but you're more support. Troops at that point. You're not really in the battle. You're kind of like in the. You're basically like support.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. So, here. Maharechu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai Amvorach Leolam Vaed. Wait, no, sorry. Baruch et Adonai Amvorach. Baruch Adonai Amvorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Asher בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה. Alright, so I'm going to speed this up and I'll read the first bit, see how much I can. Alright, here. ויסעו בני ישראל ויחנו בערבות מואב מעבר לירדן ירחו. וירא בלק בן ציפור את כל אשר עשה ישראל לאמורי, ויגר מואב מפני העם מאוד, כי רבו ויקץ מואב מפני בני ישראל, ויאמר מואב אל זקני מדיין, עתה ילחכו הקהל את כל סביבותינו כלכוך האשור את ירק השדה. ובלק בן ציפור מלך למואב בעת ההיא, וישלח מלאכים אל בלעם בן באור בתורה אשר על הנחר ארץ בני עמו לקרוא לו לאומר הנה עם יצא ממצרים הנה כיסה את עין הארץ והוא יושב ממעולי ואתה לך נרא לי את העם הזה כי תצומו ממני אולי אוכל נחה בו ואגרשנו מן הארץ כי ידעתי את אשר תברך מבורך ואשר תאוירן וילכו לזקני מואב וזקני מדיין ומכסים לידם ויבוא אל בלעם וידברו אליו דברי בלק ויאמר עליהם לינו פה הלילה והשיבותי אתכם דבר כאשר ידבר אדוני אלי וישבו שרי מואב עם בלעם, ויבוא אלוהים אל בלעם, ויאמר מי האנשים האלה עמך? ויאמר בלעם אל האלוהים, בלק בן ציפור מלך מואב שלח אלי, והנה העם היוצא ממצרים, ויכעס את עין הארץ עתה לך, קבע לי אותו אולי אוכל להילחם בו, וגירשתי. ויאמר אלוהים אל בלעם, לא תלך עמהם, לא תואר אתם, כי ברוך הוא. ויקם בלעם בבוקר, ויאמר אל שרי בלק, לכו אל ארצכם, כי מן אדוני לטיתי להלוך עמכם. ויקומו שרי מואב, ויבואו אל בלק, ויאמרו מן בלעם הלוך עמנו. ויוסף עוד בלק שולח שרים רבים ויכבדים אל, ויבואו אל בלעם ויאמרו לו, כה אמר בלק בן ציפור, אנא תימנע מהלוך אלי, כי כבד עבדיך מאוד, וכל אשר תאמר עלי אעשה לך. נא קבע לי את העם הזה. ויען בלעם ויאמר אליו, בלק, אם ייתן לי בלק מלוא ביתו כסף וזהב, לא אוכל לעבור את פי אדוני אלוהי, לעשות קטונה או גדולה, ועתה שבו נא בזה גם אתם הלילה, וידע מה יוסף אדוני דבר עמי. ויבוא אלוהים אל בלעם לילה, ויאמר אלוהים לקרוא לך, באו אנשים קום לך איתם, ואחד הדבר אשר אדבר אליך אותו תעשה. ויקם בלעם בבוקר, וינח חבוש את אתונו, וילך עם שרי מואב. ויחרף אלוהים כי הולך, ויתייצב מלאך אדוני בדרך, לשטן לו והוא רוכב על אתונו, ושני נעריו עמו, ותראה האתון את מלאך אדוני ניצב בדרך, וחרבו שלופה, וידו את האתון מאית הדרך, ותלך בשדה. ויך בלעם את האתון להטותה הדרך, ויעמוד מלאך אדוני במישור הכרמים, גדל מזה וגדל מזה, ותראה האתון את המלאך אדוני, ותילחץ אל הקיר, ותלחץ את רגל בלעם את הקיר, ויסף להכותה. ויוסף מלאך אדוני עבור, ויאמר במקום צר אשר אין דרך לנטות, ימין ושמאל ותראה האתון. ואת מלך אדוני ותירבץ תחת בלעם, ויחרף בלעם ויך את האתון במקל. ויפתח אדוני את פי האתון, ותאמר לבלעם, מה עשיתי לך, כי הכיתני זה 3 רגליים. ויאמר בלעם לאתון, כי התעלת, ואילו יש חרב בידי, כי אתה הרגתיך. ותאמר האתון אל בלעם, הלא אנוכי אתונך אשר רכבת עלי מעודך עד היום הזה, הסכן הסכנתי לעשות לך כה. ויאמר לו, ויגל אדוני את עיני בלעם, וירא את מלאך אדוני ניצב בדרך, וחרבו שלופה בידו, ויקוד וישתחו לעפעף. ויאמר אליו מלאך אדוני, על מה הכית את אתונך זה 3 רגלים? והנה אנוכי יצאתי לשטן, כי ירד הדרך לנגדי ותירני. האתון ותן לפני זה 3 רגלים, ולננה מפני, כי אתה גם אותך הרגתי, ואותה החייתי. ויאמר בלעם אל מלאך אדוני, חטאתי כה לא ידעתי, כי אתה ניצב לקראתי בדרך, ואתה אמרה בעיניך שובה לי. ויאמר מלאך אדוני אל בלעם, לך עם אנשים ואפס את הדבר אשר אדבר לך אותו תדבר. וילך בלעם עם שרי בלק, וישמע בלק כי בא בלעם, ויצא לקרוא אותו אל מואב אשר על גבול ארנון, אשר בקצה הגבול. ויאמר בלק אל בלעם, הלא שלוח שלחתי אליך לקרוא לך, למה לא הלכת אליך? אתה יכול וכדבר ממואב הדבר אשר ישים אלוהים בפי אותו אדבר. וילך בלעם עם בלק ויבואו קריית חוצות, וישפך בלק בקר וצאן, וישלח לבלעם ולשרים אשר איתו, ויהיו בבוקר ויקח בלק את בלעם ויעלהו במות פעל, וירומו משם קצה העם. Interesting, Bamot Baal. I wonder what the Bamot Baal are, the heights of Baal. Maybe it's literally referring to the high places of Baal. Is that how you would understand it?
Yeah, I would think the mountains of Lebanon. That's what immediately comes to mind, what they're talking about there.
Well, but we're talking about Jordan. This is in the region of Jordan.
Okay.
I mean, keep in mind, Baal was worshipped in many places. And if it's referring to the Bamot, the high places, it could literally be referring to these high places that are erected all around.
Yeah, no, it could be whatever high place happens to be around, or it could be referring to a great high place over in Lebanon. It could be all, again, it can always refer to both at the same time.
I mean, the only reason why I think that it's probably not referring to Lebanon is because, this is all happening in between Jordan and the Sinai. And it's like it brought him up to the heights of Baal, and he saw from there the edge of the people. I mean, I think it would be kind of a stretch if it was Lebanon, being able to see all the way over there.
Yeah, no, it's one of those. I'm pretty agnostic on this one. I'm one way or the other. I'm not willing to sign on or sign off on necessarily anything. That's all.
That's fair. But yeah, that part reminds me of this. Let's see. So what's next? So that was interesting. You have any thoughts on the story so far?
I was going to say I had some more thoughts on Balaam's ass.
Yep.
And about people having criticizing his relationship with his ass. And again, people haven't seen his ass. That could be a really nice wide ass. Great for pushing.
He did
hip bones in just the right place, just the right shape, surface handles. And my suspicion is those people have never read Apuleius and the Golden Ass. Because if they had, they'd understand just how much fun an ass can have. Egg.
Yeah, I was going to say he definitely spent a lot of time sitting on that ass.
Well, an ass that fine, why wouldn't you sit on it? Egg.
Yeah. Okay. Here, I'm just going to try going along with this one.
وهخين لي بزي شبعة فريم وشبعة إدين ويا بلاك كأشير دبير بالعام ويا البلاك بالعام فاربعاي فمزبيع ويومر بالعام لفلاك يتيصير على عولتيخا وإلخا ولاي يبقى أدوني تفي ودبار ما يرئيني وهجادتي لا ويلخ شافي ويقار إلهيم البلعام ويومر إلاو إذ خمس بيحوث عراقي.
Interesting, the 7 altars. Shiva.
وياسم أدوناي جبار في العام ويومر شوف البلاك ويخوف يدبر ويشوف إلاو وهنين الصاف على عولته ويخل سرير مؤاف ويسامي شلو ويومر من أرام ينحيني בלק מלך מואב מהררי קדם לך
Yeah, the mountains of the east. This is talking about Jordan.
קר לי יעקב ולך זועמה ישראל
Zuma. Interesting.
מה ארקוב לא קבואל ומה אזעום לא זעם אדוני כי מראש סורים הראינו
כי מראש סורים
ומגבעות אשורנו
אשורנו אשורנו הן
לבדד ישכון ובגויים לא יתחשב ממנה עפר יעקב ומספר את רובע ישראל תמות נפשי מות ישרים ותהי אחריתי
my soul will surely die. Wait, my soul will die. Wait, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Achariti كموهو
البلعام بعسيت لي لقوم أويبي بقحتيك وهني فراق تفريق ويعن ويومر هلو أشر يسيم أدوني بفي أوثو إشمور لدبير ويومر إله بلام لخنا إتي المقام أحيط أشير كرئنو مشان إفس قصيه فرئي ويخلو لو فرئي ويقبنو لي مشان ويقحم سيدي صوفين الروش هبسقان ويبن شبعا مزبحوت ويعال برائيل ومزبيع ويومر البلاق يتيصيبكم على عولتك وآنو في إقارتكم ويقار أدوني البلعام وياسم دبر بفيو ويومر شوف البلاق ويخاف يدبر ويابو إله وهنون الصف على عولته ويساري مؤاب إتو ويومر له بلاق ما تبير أدوناي ويسامي شلو ويومر قوم بلق وجماع هأسينا عداي بنوص الطور لو إيش ويخزف وبن أدم ويزنحم ههو أمر ولو يعسي وذبير ولو يقيمنا إني بريخ لقاحتي وغريخ ولو أشيبنا لو هبيت آوين بيعقوب ولو رأى عمل بإسرائيل أدوناي إلوها عمو.
Amal also means toil, I thought. I guess it means Mishach. Hello. Eloha, Elohayo.
ولو أشيبنا لو هبيت آوين بيعقوب ولو رأى عمل بإسرائيل أدوناي إلوها عمو. رعاة ملك بو الموصي آمن من مصرائيل إثو عفوث رئيم لو كيلو ناحش بيعقوب ولو قاسم بإسرائيل كعيد يأمر ليعقوب وإسرائيل مبعال هنعم الذي يقوم وخاري يتنسى لو يشرب عد يوخال طرف وإذا حلالي يشتي ويومر بلق البلعام جنبه لو في قوبنو جنباريخ لو في باريخنو ويعن بالعام ويومر البلق ألو دباتي إليك لمور قول أشر يدبر أدوناي أوثو عيسين ويومر بلق البلعام لخنا إقاح خاف المقوم أحير ولا يشر بعينيها إلوين يقبوثوا لي بالشام ويقاح بلق البلعام روش حبيعور النشقاف.
Oh, that's interesting. So you also have a mention of Peor. And then Peor is connected to Baal, like Baal Peor, the opening. Peor means the opening. So the summit of the Peor, the summit of the opening. This is talking about a volcano. It must be.
Well, I'd mentioned the volcano was the Tower of Babel sort of thing we were talking about earlier as well. Possibility.
Well, but the root for that we're connecting that to was perach. This is peor. This is two different words. This the same word that's like bal peor is ball of the holes, and that's the one that people talk about shitting on the idols to worship it, and like basically worshiping the idol with their holes, which apparently, according to some scholars, might be accurate. In which case, I'm like, what?
People will worship anything, Ariel. That's something that it was a slow realization to dawn on me, but I had to accept it. Tag.
Keep your poo-poo away from the voodoo. That's at least what I say.
And there are others who say there is no voodoo without the poo-poo.
Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
whatever.
Keep your poo-poo out of my woo-woo.
Exactly. Keep your poo-poo out of my hoo-hoo as well. Yep.
Hey, what you do in the bedroom and your private time is up to you. I'm just saying keep your poo-poo out of my woo. Well, then again, I guess you wouldn't have woo without poo, so.
I was going to say, Aleister Crowley would argue with you. Tag.
True. Alright. Balaam Rosh Peor Hanishkaf Al Pnei HaYishimon.
بني هيشيمون ويومر بلعم البلام بني لي بزي شبعة مزبحوث وياخين لي بزي شبعة خريم وشبعة قديم ويا عاس بلاق كأشير أمر بالعم ويا عال بار وحايل ومزبيح.
This is genuinely interesting. This is probably, I'm going to be honest, it's probably one of my favorite parshas. I don't know why. It's interesting. You got a whole different perspective. Shoot, does he have any more out since? Yikesers 22-23. I don't know. Come on. Oh, 8 minutes ago. Wait, 24? Here. Perfect.
ويا رب العام
ويلا بلام
بعيني أذني لبريخ إسرائيل ولو هلاخ كفاعم بفاعم إقراف نحشيم
kefam, kepa, like from time, like time to time, like time and time. Likrat nechashim vayas.
ويا شيخ الهم البار أنا ويساق بالعام إثعنا ويا إسرائيل شوخين لشفطاو واتهي على روح إلهيم ويسام شلو ويومر نقوم بالعم بنو بعور ونقوم هكي.
See, his name is Balaam Bano, the son of Peor, and he's at the summit of Peor. So this has got to be like a play on words. With a perceptive eye. I think this might be the tradition where he only had one kai comes from because he had a perceptive eye, not perceptive eyes. Mechazeh Shaddai. The sayings of El that from the vision of Shaddai sees. This is interesting. El, who the vision of Shaddai sees. The sayings of God. This almost seems to be implying that El and Shaddai are two separate entities here. Sayings of El that the vision of Shaddai sees. All fallen, yeah, all with uncovered eyes. I don't know. No, yeah.
I was going to say it could be something along the lines about, God versus the angel of God kind of thing. The other one I thought of, like the Eye of Balaam and the Isle of Balor from Celtic mythology. Again, the thought occurred to me. I don't think there's a connection, but yeah. Okay.
Interesting. Maybe people just like having eyes of, maybe it's like eyes and balls, eyeballs.
Yeah, especially eyeballs with power in them. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, you can go to Odin for that as well. Wait, let's see. Nafel גילוי עיניים, מה טובו עליך יעקב משכנותיך ישראל, מה טובו עליך יעקב משכנותיך ישראל. כנחלים נטיו כנהגו כגנות עלינה כעלים נטע אדוני כרזים עלי מים. Mato Izal Mayim Midala Vezarao B'mayim Rabim Vayarom Me'agag Malko Vatinase Menatuto אל מוציאו ממצרים כתועפות לא יוכל גויים צרה ועצמותיהם יגרם ויצאיו ימחץ קרא שכב כארי וכלביה מי קימנו מברכך ברוך ואורך ארואיך הרף בלק אל בלעם ויספוך את כפיו ויאמר בלק אל בלעם לקובוי קראתיך והנה ברכת ברך זה 3 פעמים ואתה ברך לך אל מקומך מתי כבד אכבדך והנה מעל מנחה אדוני מכבוד ויאמר בלעם אל בלק הלא גם אל מלאכיך אשר שלחת אלי דיברתי לאומר עמי תני בלק מילו לעשות טובה או רע מליבי אשר ידבר אדוני אותו אדבר ועתה הנני הולך למלך יעצך אשר יעשך יעשה העם הזה למך באחרית הימים ויישא משלו ויאמרו נאום מלבנו ואור ונאום הגבר שתום העין נאום שומע אמרל וידעת עליון מחזה שדי ויחזה נופל וגלוי עיניים אלינו ולא אתה אשורנו ולא קרוב דרך כוכב מיעקב. So it's interesting here. Here you have he took the say. Oh, where is it? The sayings of El, and the one who knows the knowledge of Elyon, and who sees the vision of Shaddai. That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it almost sounds like he's evoking a certain sense of Trinity. Okay.
I wouldn't quite word it that way, but I see where you're getting at. Yeah, cool.
I qualified with almost kind of like, you know.
Oh, this is a very famous verse. And a scepter shall rise from Israel, and he shall pierce the nobles of Moab and demolish the וקם שבט מישראל ומחת פאבי מואב וקרקע כל בני שת. And will demolish the walls of all the children of Set. Interesting. והיה אדום ירשע והיה ירשע שעיר אויב היה בישראל עושה חיל וירד מיעקב והביא שריר מאיר ויראו את עמלק ויישא משלו ויאמר ראשית גויים עמלק ואחריתו עדי עובד ויראו את הקני ויישא משלו ויאמר איתן ושחרך ושים בסלע קינך כי אם יהיה לבאר קין אדמה שוט ישבך ויישא משלו ויאמר אוי מי יחיה משומו עצים ויד כתים והינו אשור והינו עבר וגם הוא עדי עובד ויקם בלעם וילך וישב למקמו וגם בלק הלך לדרכו. All right, we're almost done, thank God. Let's see. It ends at 5:09, so I guess I could just pull it up. Oh, I definitely need to drink water. I'm proud of myself, though. I just read the whole thing. Well, almost. Let's see numbers. We're at 25 now. All right, here we go. וישב ישראל בשיטים ויחל העם לזהנות אל בהנות מואב ותקרן להם לזבחי אלוהיהן ויאכל העם וישתחוו לאלוהיהן ויצמד ישראל לבעל פאור ויחר אף יהיה אדוני בישראל ויאמר אדוני אל משה קח את כל ראשי העם והוקע אותם לאדוני נגד השמש וישוב חרון אף אדוני מישראל ויאמר משה אל שופטי ישראל הרגו איש אנשיו הנצמדים לבעל פאור והנה איש מבני ישראל בא ויקרב אליך ואת המדיינים לעיני משה ולעיני כל עדת בני ישראל והמה בחוטי פתח אוהל מועד ויראו פנחס בן אלעזר בן אהרון הכהן ויקם מתוך העדה ויקח רומח בידו ויבוא אחר איש ישראל אל הקובה וידקור אל שניהם את איש ישראל ואת אישה אל קבתה ותעצר המגפה מעל בני ישראל ויהיו המתים במגפה 420,000. So that's interesting. It's kind of dark at the end. What's interesting is notice this word that it has for the chamber is kuba. I wonder if it shares a root with kaba. It's a large vaulted tent.
I'd be a little bit surprised if there wasn't any connection. Tag.
Yeah, interesting. I also so it's interesting that Baal Peor has been translated in this context of the opening of the human rather than the opening of the mountain, because it's the top at the opening. What's it mean? Like literally, it says the opening of the mountain.
Well, it also echoes back to the Egyptian ceremony of the opening of the mouth, which is one of the oldest, traditions, in the Egyptian religion kind of thing. It dates back pre-dynastic. Okay.
Yeah, well, what I think I'm more talking about the opening of the orifices that are best left unmentioned.
Well, I prefer not to mention them. If people want to talk to them about them, I can point them to locations. That's very, very, very welcome.
Yeah, there's a reason they're called unmentionables. Doesn't mean they're bad. Just means maybe don't mention them in common practice. At least if you're, At least if you're going to do it in a respectable context. But anyway, on that note, any last thoughts before we Madim that binds? Interesting that like relegates, literally binds themselves to Baal Peor. So anyway, you have any last thoughts before we close out?
No, I think we explored anything relevant that I had to say that I can think of, at least. Tag.
Oh, actually, wait, there might be, what was the other thing? trying to think. Also, think about it. They're talking about the Midianites, and I'll be right back. But Midian, is in modern day Saudi Arabia, and then so like even if you want to like go with the whole like if you want to accept the standard Islamic narrative around the Kaaba, still I wonder if there's a connection between the use of the Kuba and talking about the Midianites and you see what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. And the migration would be like with a lot of this from the Midianites to the Edomites, where you had Mecca, not Mecca, but Petra, which was very much, again, I agree with the idea that was what the original Mecca was, because you had the pilgrimage to Petra, you had basically the equivalent of the Kaaba, and all of that was already set up in Petra, and the tradition of it being anywhere else only postdates an earthquake in the late 600s. Okay.
So interesting. So, See, so the root is let's see, Kuba. Let's see, Kof Bet Hey.
And of course, that dovetails perfectly with the whole Kenite hypothesis, where Yahweh went through Midian.
Let's see, Kuba, Tent of Honor, Kababu Shield. This refers to the vault like on top, and it doesn't necessarily exclude the Kaaba because it could. Does it have a vaulted top?
Not vaulted per se. It has a second floor, but who knows what the original was actually like. It is a tent, though. Okay.
Let's see. Interesting. So it's from the root Kab, which could potentially be connected to this. Where was it? Cab, a measure of capacity, only dry measure. It's a quarter, or wait, no, a quarter kav is the size of it. And then Kuba is apparently derived from that. I wish there was more discussion of that. Is there any Keva stomach? Yeah, I don't.
That quarter could easily have some correspondence to the four corners tag.
Yeah, the only problem is I don't know if I'm only because when it says measure, so it says a quarter kav on size, but then it also says wait, let's see, rova hakav. No, so a kav isn't a quarter. Rova hakav is a quarter kav. That's what I was thinking it is. So unfortunately, so it doesn't really help us for the sake of this. Cool. Let's see. I wonder if Kuba has a different meaning. Yeah, I have no idea. But it's definitely worth. I mean, at the very least, this idea of a vaulted or honored tent of honor, that does make sense for the Kaaba. Right.
Yeah, and carry over from the whole tabernacle during the Exodus and all too.
Yeah. Anyway, on that note, let's see. Wait, where is it? Here. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam natav v'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. So on that note, unless anyone has any last thoughts. Well, I don't have any, so unless you have any, Graham.
No, well, no last thoughts on anything here. I got lots of thoughts on other stuff. So,
any thoughts on anything that's like relevant, not necessarily directly, but like?
I was gonna say, just was thinking it's been a while since I've read Apuleius. That's all. It was fun as always, Ariel. Thanks.
I feel like there was something that I was going to say, but I don't remember now. What was it I was just reading? It was about, what was it where, yeah, I legitimately don't remember. If it's important, I'll come back. Anyway, on that note,
Want to tell the Rebbe the words of the new song that we're singing with Moshiach, right? So I'm just going to read him. Am Yisrael, have no fear. Moshiach will be here this year. We want Moshiach now. We don't want to wait. Okay? We want Moshiach now. We want Moshiach now. Yisrael have no fear, Moshiach will be this year. Yisrael have no fear, Moshiach will be here this year. We want Moshiach now, we want Moshiach now, we don't want to wait. We want Moshiach now, we don't want to